Dumbest main character ever? The films that prove bad decisions make blockbusters. The visit. The kids go, "We're going to visit our grandparents." "Well, I don't want you to go, but if you really feel like you want to go, I'll drive you to their houses." And then the mum could go, "Hey, you're not my parents, I'm calling the police." The end. I can't stand that the mother didn't apologize once in the movie for just leaving her kids with two crazy murderers. The Ring. "Hey, do you want to watch that tape that kills you in 7 days?" No thanks. Roll credits. 13 Reasons Why. The frickin' kid just couldn't listen to the damn tapes. It's literally the first thing she tells him. It's what everyone repeats to him a million times. He runs around asking people stuff instead of listening to the tapes. I mean, I feel like Dorothy should have asked a few more questions about the ruby slippers. There goes another one. Hold your fire, there's no life forms aboard. Dude, we're looking for an inanimate set of plans in a galaxy full of sentient robots. Oh, right. Written and directed by George Lucas. How about a Jurassic Park where Hammond actually spared no expense? Even after he says the line, "spared no expense," it's followed 15 minutes later by, "I told you how many times we need locking mechanisms on the vehicle doors." I mean, how the frick do you have a T-Rex, but not locks on the car doors in your dinosaur park? Reservoir Dogs. I don't know, Joe. This heist seemed kinda risky and dangerous. Yeah, I'm not actually sure everyone in this crew is on the up and up. Alright, let's call it off. Over the Hedge. RJ decided to be a dum-dum and steal all of the bear's food. Like, what did he think would happen even if he didn't accidentally wake him up? The bear would have still woken up a week later and probably would have known it was RJ. Although, I suppose if RJ never stole the food, he'd still be a con man, and the forest animals likely would have starved to death that year. So, dang, I haven't heard someone reference Over the Hedge in years. Breaking Bad would have worked out much better for Walt if it just swallowed his pride and allowed his old friend to pay for his treatment. I know, right? My rich friend will pay for everything and all I have to do is play Candy Crush and eat Pop-Tarts. But you know what? I'm gonna make crystal and kill people instead. I mean, it's true, but the whole point of it is that Walter is prideful and hates how weak and unmanly he is. His cancer is just a means to expose that, and the rest of the show is him being increasingly awful to try and feel good about himself, so it fits with the character. And I think we're actually gonna see a lot of that in other people's answers, to be honest. I'd kind of accepted that Walter's pride was the reason for him not accepting the money, but I kind of never extrapolated him hating himself as part of the reason for that pride. That's a really good reading of the show. Thanks for your input. Okay, back to the idiots. Aladdin. If Jafar had just paid Aladdin what he promised him instead of betraying him at the cave, he would have had the lamp and become the king and been mighty and powerful. Aladdin just wanted his money in return for the lamp. For real, it's not like Aladdin would have been able to do anything about Jafar using the lamp. Right? But no, Jafar is the basest sort of villain. He's a lowly troll. He simply can't resist an opportunity to screw someone over for his own sadistic amusement, even when it's directly counterproductive. He wasted time trying to get Aladdin to give up on his only leverage when he could have just pulled the man up and completed the deal. No Country for Old Men. Never go back to the scene of the crime. Also, if you find a duffel bag full of cash and decide to keep it, check it for tracking devices. How about take the cash and leave the duffel bag? Now Llewellyn and Carla are living comfortably in an isolated Idaho ranch they paid cash for. Look, I'm aware the tracker was in a wad of cash. In my version, Moss leaves that stack in the truck with the dead guy. Quit ruining my fantasy of the Mosses living happily ever after. Don't reopen the beach for the holiday weekend in Jaws. Any horror movie where your friends are dying one by one. After the third one, you say, "Screw it," and you leave. Wait, the third? After one death, I'm out of there and not coming back without the cops. You maniac. Any movie where the main character says there's no time to explain. This made me think of The Princess Bride. Let me explain. No, there's too much. Let me sum up. Such a good movie. I suppose a summation is good enough. In 50 Shades of Grey, Anna should just say, "You're a stalker with serious emotional trauma. Seek help." Star Wars Episode 1. Padme could have bought Anakin's mum, and he probably would have never turned to the dark side. Republic credits might not be worth much on Tatooine, but I'm sure one of her jewel-encrusted headdresses is. Or if anyone had asked Anakin how he was doing, and if he wanted to talk. But the story of the prequels is essentially the old Jedi were stupid and kind of deserved it. If Mr. and Mrs. Bueller were anything like my parents, the movie would have been called Ferris Bueller's Day at School. If they were anything like my parents, they would have called my bluff, taken me to the doctor's office, and found out, to my own surprise as well, that I had bronchitis. Forget the movies, How I Met Your Mother took 9 years for a 5-minute story. Kids, I was at a wedding and your mom was the bass player. The end. Oh, and that wedding? Aunt Robin's. I'd like to do it with her again. Is that cool with you guys? Isn't this all so serendipitous? Pretty much anything on the Hallmark Channel. Wait, let me explain. Batman Begins. The Waynes shouldn't have left through the side exit of the theater. Just call Alfred and wait out front. Hire a driver to pick you up at the entrance like every other elite rich person. John Wick. If Theon could have just killed John, considering they messed him up pretty bad, not only would we not have gotten 3 movies, but Theon would have been known as the person who killed Baba Yaga. Being the son of a crime lord and worldwide recognition for killing the most famous assassin on the planet would make the Tazarov family untouchable. Hi, is the car for sale? No. Where did you buy it? I'm a mobster's son with a literal bottomless checkbook. Murray's Classic Vehicles. Drop my name, John Wick, and I'll give you a good deal. Hey, thanks. Star Wars. After discovering that Anakin could be very powerful with the Force but had a lot of fear and attachment issues over his mother, the Council sends Obi-Wan back to Tatooine to buy his mother out of slavery and relocate her to Coruscant in a safe neighborhood. Anakin now knows that even without him in the picture, his mum will live a safe and happy life and can detach from her much more easily than leaving her alone on a savage world. And even if he isn't able to fully detach from her, he never has the impetus to slaughter the Sand People and kickstart his descent to the dark side. It's not a sure plan, but certainly one that would produce a version of Anakin who ends up resenting the Jedi just a little less. Maybe even enough to not slaughter younglings in the future. Please, Lightning McQueen, change your tires in this pit stop. Okay. Then his tires wouldn't have blown out in the last lap and he would have won, as he was comfortably leading the race. And no need for a tiebreaker race. The Emperor's New Groove. Yzma originally says that she could turn him into a flea, a tiny little flea, put that flea in a box, put that box into another box, and eventually send that box to myself so I could smash it with a hammer. Then she says to save on postage, she'll just use poison, which ends up not being poison. Even if she messed up the original plan, he'd be a flea and for all intents and purposes out of the picture pretty instantly. Yzma messed herself up trying to save a quarter? School of Rock. Mrs. Mullins says, "Can I see your ID, Mr. Sheebley?" Sorry, I don't have it, Mrs. Mullins. Oh, I'm sorry. You won't be able to teach the kids unless you have proof you're a teacher or who you're saying you are. And roll credits. To be fair, I've done a lot of substitute teaching and no one has ever asked to see any kind of identification. Not once ever. Don't swim to the drop-off, Nemo! Okay, Dad! And roll credits. That was the most predictable reaction for a kid his age, though. Marlin shouldn't have put him down in front of his new friends and been so rude about his fin. That should have been a private conversation. Literally not picking Anakin to be Padme's bodyguard when the tension between them is thicker than Jabba. I concede that this is a stupid plot point, as in the script, Anakin does indeed have a crush on Padme from a young age. But I would argue that the chemistry between Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen was basically non-existent, so in the film we're given no reason to imagine it either. In the words of Yahtzee Croshaw, to say Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman had chemistry in that film is like saying that a chair stacked on top of another chair is a sizzlingly erotic love scene. There's actually a term for this trope. It's called the idiot plot. It's a term for a plot that hangs together only because the main characters behave like idiots. A single intelligent move or question by any of the characters and all problems would be resolved. It's not so bad if the characters are supposed to be acting like idiots, but it's very bad if the idiot plot depends on intelligent characters picking up the idiot ball for the plot to work. The main antagonist in that 2016 film featuring a bunch of DC villains is a member of the team herself, Enchantress, who turned out to be evil and gains power thanks to some magic MacGuffin that the lady running the team uses to control her. Literally, the entire plot of S-Squad wouldn't have happened if they didn't bother assembling the frickin' squad. Or if Waller goes, "I have an idea. We start a team of supervillains and use them to do our dirty work." And the government guy who had authorized this goes, "No." The end. Rent. "Hey Mom, Mark here. I'm sorry, it didn't work out. I'm being evicted. Can I go home again?" Roll credits. Inside Out. In the scene where sadness and joy meet the two workers in the long term, they send the gum commercial memory through the wall, the little flap that opens if you push a memory through it, where it goes up to the headquarters. I don't know why they didn't think of sending the core memories through that instead. Frozen. The parents completely isolated Elsa from the world, leaving her with insecurity and anxiety. They also seemingly neglected Anna, as her behavior was never in check, which is why she continuously butted her way into Elsa's space when she clearly needed some time alone to clear her head. Maybe if the two had actually talked instead of Anna's near assault on Elsa, something could have been worked out that didn't include running away and getting hypothermia in a semi-frozen river. Sleeping Beauty. Honey, we should invite Maleficent to our daughter's christening. I know she's the mistress of all evil, but it'd probably end up worse for us if we didn't invite her. I was also going to say Sleeping Beauty, but for a different reason. Those damned fairies. They knew that they had to keep her safe until sundown on her 16th birthday. They managed to protect her up until the very last day, and then they send her out in the wilderness to pick berries. Alone. Ladies, you just had to run out the clock. How good are those berries that they couldn't wait until the next day? You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to Am I the Genius? I can't see the Indominus Rex. Let me just take a look at the GPS tracking device. Oh, it's in the cage, but invisible. Better not open any doors or go inside. She's the man. I'm sorry, but you're very clearly a girl dressed as a boy. Do you even go here? Credits. Also, I was factoring in the way that she talked to sound like her brother. And if your brother's in London and you're in his school pretending to be him, where does everyone else think you are? Wait a minute, Doc. What are you talking about? What happens to us in the future? Are we going to become buttholes or something? No. You and Jennifer both turn out fine. It's your kids, Marty. Something's got to be done about your kids. Well, Doc, if this happens in the future, why don't you come inside and we talk about it over a couple of beers? We'll make a note to make sure the kids don't misbehave 30 years from now. Let's hurry, though. We've got an important day ahead of us. It could be argued that showing them was the teaching. You can't just tell a teenager something and have them remember it 30 years down the line easy peasy. Marty had to be taught not to let needles wind him up. Jeepers Creepers. Just mind your own business and keep driving. Didn't Jeepers scare them before they saw the church? So he'd already know Justin Long's fear smell, so he'd be hunting him anyway. All the same though, if you see a creepy guy in a trench coat dump an obvious dead body down a hole, don't frickin' stop. Jumanji: The Next Level. Spencer, you idiot. He was depressed and wanted to escape his life. People do stupid, crazy things when they're depressed. He never expected his friends to come in after him. Meet the Parents. Ben Stiller could be like, could everyone settle down and give me a chance to explain? Avengers: Infinity War. As soon as Ma and Cull landed in New York, Doctor Strange could have used the Time Stone repeatedly to his advantage. Well, that's the whole problem with Marvel now. At any point he could have just, frozen time? Or stuck those idiots in a time loop, or just reversed time so they were ready for them. You can't have all-powerful time travel introduced, because it makes every other problem you don't solve with it seem pointless and stupid. Home Alone 1. Yeah, sure, just forget about one of your kids. Home Alone 2. Oh, congratulations on learning from your mistakes and managing to get your kid to the airport this time, and he's gone. Do you think Child Protection Services were like, yeah, most people don't lose their kid once a year, we're gonna have to come over and see what's up. Gone with the Wind. If Ashley had just told Scarlett in plain English that he loved Melanie, then Scarlett would have given up chasing him. Instead, he'd say things like, she's like me, we're blood, because they were cousins. We understand each other. Basically, Scarlett misinterpreted that to mean he didn't love her, but was marrying her for other reasons. It wasn't until the end that after Melanie died that Scarlett realized Ashley loved Mellie and not her. She wasted years of her life on something that could have been cleaned up with a simple phrase. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Just portkey Harry to the graveyard right off the bat, you idiots. Well, actually, if Voldemort had conjured a firearm to kill Harry Potter, not even a mother's love would have saved him from that. But no, he had to be all melodramatic and Avada Kedavra to the little chosen one. Avada Kalashnikov! You don't even need that. He's a baby. You could do it with a bucket of water or like a boot. Good God, these comments got dark. But yes, the narrator has seen many jokes, including the infamous Potter Puppet Pals sketch, showing just how quickly either side could have resolved the problem by just whipping out Uzis and riddling their antagonist with bullets. It's less of a good story, though. The Martian. All 6 astronauts are fools, as are all of the planners at NASA. If it were even remotely possible that the lander could be toppled in a Martian windstorm, the first order of business upon landing would have been to tie it down and secure it against such a threat. Andy Weir said he fudged the science on that. There's not enough wind on Mars, and he knew it. But he couldn't think of another way to strand his character, so he went with it. Twilight. Stop staring at me, you vitamin D deficient creep. Story over. Hey, what's creepy about a really old man sneaking into a teenager's bedroom to watch her sleep? The creepiest thing I ever saw. I was working with some emotionally disturbed kids. They'd earned a treat and got to watch a movie. They were watching The Wizard of Oz, and one of the kids says, "This is stupid. The metal guy should just use his axe to take the lady, Dorothy's, heart." I had to admit that would have solved the Tin Man's dilemma. Oh god. The Labyrinth. At the start, our protagonist meets a bug and asks her where to go, not how to get to the castle. The bug said to the right, and when she left, the bug said, "Oh, if you go to the left, you'll end up in that troll castle." Remember when Star-Lord got mad and started smacking Thanos in the face? Yeah, we could have skipped Endgame, to be honest. Nope, Doctor Strange saw 14 million realities, only one had the best outcome. This implies he saw futures where Star-Lord doesn't smack Thanos around, and for whatever reason, those futures are worse than what we got in Endgame. That scene is actually pretty brilliant, because it puts to rest any complaints about what the Avengers should have done. It doesn't matter what anyone else should have done, the only reality that mattered was the one that played out in Infinity War and Endgame. Maybe the reason why they fail in every 14 million realities is because Star-Lord is an idiot in every reality and always smacks Thanos. The Matrix. If Neo had just taken the blue pill and lived out his miserable days like the rest of us. And everyone's life would have been arguably better. Wow, thanks for throwing away the entirety of everyone's life and condemning us all to miserable existence in a polluted, dark, destroyed, and miserable real world. From how I see it, the bald dude from the first movie was the real hero. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. The kid finds the golden ticket and sells it to another rich, spoiled kid. Easy millions, and they're not poor anymore, and he wouldn't have a trauma because of the dying kids in the factory. Gremlins. If the idiot had only followed the rules. The rules aren't clear. It's always after midnight. The Lion King. Don't listen to Scar, Simba. He wants to be king through any means necessary. And nobody goes to that gorge to practice their roars. I don't think Mufasa knew that Scar was quite that untrustworthy and power-hungry. He knew he was a bit of a jerk, but he didn't think he'd murder or try to seize power. Mufasa saw good in Scar. Otherwise, instead of saying, "Help me, brother," he would have said, "You did this, didn't you, you fratricidal prick? I knew you'd pull something like this." Thor 1. Hey Thor, don't go fight the ice people. You also made Loki into a bad guy, you idiot. Kurtwood Smith should have played Odin. The Blair Witch Project. Just walk downstream. Star Wars: The Last Jedi. If Hux had just ordered the Dreadnought to fire on any capital ships in range, the whole movie would have been over, the bad guys would have won. John Wick. There's no need to hurt the dog. You wanted a classic car? Your dad's a wealthy Russian mafia boss. Use your daddy's money to buy a similar car at auction. Everybody lives happily ever after. Also, John Wick is such a legend, especially with that crime organization, and not a single member of the Sun's crew recognized him. What? Hey, that's John Wick. We should probably leave him alone. Batman. If Bruce's parents took the car. And Superman, if everyone had just listened. And of course Batman vs. Superman, if the two of them had just stopped brooding at each other and kissed. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. If they'd just paid attention in class all year and written their damn essays, we wouldn't have had to go on one of the greatest movies of all time. Harry Potter. Talk to an adult. In the books he does, and the adults are almost not useless sometimes. In the films, yeah, he just kinda Leroy Jenkinses his way into several situations. Dumb and Dumber. The Ring. Just don't watch the movie. Problem solved. I can forgive being tricked by that because there's no reason for them to know, but I got genuinely angry in the theater when that idiot kid watched the movie toward the end. Just destroy the frickin' tape. Brant goes, "Here's your rug back, Lebowski." Lebowski goes, "I'm the dude, man." Bowling, Green Herb, Bob Dylan, roll credits. Uncut Gems. Just all of it. That mix of relentless optimism and bad decision-making is so good for building tension. It's like seeing one of those hold my beer dudes that has a slim chance of actually making it. Batman the Dark Knight. If the bank manager with the shotty had some training and been a better shot, he could have just iced the Joker and boom, roll credits. Harry Potter. If Voldemort had just yeeted Harry into a wall after doing away with his parents. Oh my god, that's a spectacularly dark image and a very Gen Z casual term. I'm disturbed and in awe. On the other hand, the following commenter provides a pretty good counterpoint. What you're forgetting is that Voldemort is a complete frickin' drama queen. He could have gotten away with creating a single Horcrux, maybe another as a backup, but he did it 7 times. Why? Drama! He needed Blood of the Foe to be rezzed. But guess what? When you're literally the wizard reincarnation of the leader of the Third Reich, literally everyone not allied with you is your foe. Why did he orchestrate a whole thing to get Harry's blood? Again, drama! Heck, he could have made his Horcruxes out of like some random rocks or something and then chucked them into the middle of the ocean so they could never be found. Instead, he used as many flashy named relics as he could find. Why? Drama! And yes, he could have just connected Infant with Brick and been done with it, on frickin' Halloween night, by the way, because of course it was, but that just wouldn't have been dramatic enough for him. See, without his drama, he's just a charismatic mass murderer named Tom. But with drama, he is Dark Lord Voldemort. And who can blame him? Also, his whole shtick was magical supremacy. Using Muggle methods for important tasks is bad optics. The Lorax. My brother could have lived in blissful ignorance, but sometimes a kid's got to listen to his crotch instead of his brain. Elrond should have just stabbed Isildur the second he said no and kicked his corpse into the abyss. What are the cons of being attractive? You don't know if someone likes you for you or just how you look. They come for the looks and stay for you, I guess. Not always. That's definitely one of the downsides of physical attractiveness. Sometimes people will think they know you, but they don't. And when they discover that you're not just who they imagined you to be, some don't even care who you really are. They just wanted that made-up version and are disappointed when that's not you. This isn't an issue I have anymore as an adult, likely because I know how to handle myself professionally. But in my teens, I had a side job as a mover, and the amount of clients who would be surprised that I was about to graduate with honors and go to prestigious university. It was likely a combination of being just a mover, but also being decently attractive and very physically fit. People project a lot of bullcrap onto you, all from their own heads. Pretty? You must be dumb. Pretty and articulate? First they're shocked, then you're a B-word who has too much self-esteem. Shy and pretty? You must be stuck up. Outgoing and pretty? Who do you think you are, you bossy B-word? Clearly chasing after other women's boyfriends. Great figure? You must be a hussy. Great skin? You've probably had work done. Dress well? You waste your whole salary on clothes. Too skinny? You're mentally ill. They armchair diagnose you with anorexia. In a relationship? You're clearly a gold digger. Single? Then you're either a hussy who is playing the field, or you're a snob who thinks you're too good for anyone. You have to work overtime to appear friendly and ease everyone's insecurities. It's fricking exhausting. I wish I could upvote this 1,000,000 times. I can relate so hard to all of these, and there's nobody I can talk to about any of this, because how do you get to complain about being too attractive? People doubt if you're into nerdy stuff as much as you might say. Plus, a lot of your actions just have all these preconceived notions. People think you don't have any problems or struggles. And we've touched upon the problem of the notion of the fake gamer girl, where people are apparently so convinced that people are single-faceted that they can't accept that someone might have more elements to them than their physical appearance. This comment had some interesting follow-ups. Oh, I totally agree to this. I'm a fairly attractive woman, and when I tell people I'm a software consultant in biotech, they almost negatively judge me? Or there's often the, wow, beauty and brains, huh? comment. Like, yes, just because I'm pretty, it doesn't mean I'm stupid. What the frick? I guess it's just a mixture of one or the other and possibly some envy. You have physical looks and intellectual prowess. That can definitely make some folks seethe with inferiority. That's really their problem, though. Plus the impossible dance you must do. Smart but not intimidating. Friendly but not flirtatious. helpful but not the office assistant, talkative but not opinionated, and serious but not abrasive. The list goes on. I'm a woman in finance who's decently attractive, at least fit and plain enough to not be considered ugly, and it's an impossible balance to strike. People seem okay to openly suggesting that everything I have, like an education and fitness and a happy marriage, I lucked into. It feels really difficult to toe the many lines. People feel the need to compete with you, find something that makes you look bad, or show fault. One or two co-workers, same gender, jealous, competitive types, will set out to sabotage your success and your relationships with other people when you're just minding your own business and trying to do a good job. You're the immediate target for psychopath types. I think everyone gets that, not only attractive people. As someone who's been both, it's not the same. When you're attractive, lots of the time people of the same sex or gender will view you as a social and sexual threat to them, and act accordingly. These people are usually just super insecure about themselves. Somehow, being kind automatically equals being flirtatious or interested. People don't think attractive people struggle with their mental health, constantly being shamed or mocked out of jealousy, and people praying for your downfall. Oh my god, this. Anytime I talk to a male coworker, all the ladies will rush after and say the guy has a huge crush on me or his face lights up when you talk to him. I'm honestly just talking to people, male and female, to actually have a conversation. I'm not flirting and there's no intention on my side. I'm just conversing, people. So frustrating. Loneliness. Friends of the same gender avoid you because they're afraid their partners will want you. Opposite gender only want one thing. My best friend in high school became threatened at some point when the pretty scale tipped in my favor. It had always been in her favor. I feel gross saying this, by the way. I don't consider myself a conceited person. It didn't help that her mother even made comments, urging my friend to stop hanging out with me, not to let her boyfriends meet me. It was so dumb. Years later, I realized they were just shallow and toxic. But yeah, some women will just not like you until you reach middle age. I'm pretty okay talking to girls in general, but then there are the bombshells, 10 out of 10. And there's just something so intimidating about them, and I don't know why. I just can't make decent conversations, at least not at first. I'd imagine it happens a lot to them, and must be quite awkward and weird when you just want to have a normal conversation with people. Creeps. As a below-average-looking woman, I can actually tell you that creeps creep on ugly women too. This is the unfortunate reality that is perpetuated online, mostly unknowingly. People assuming it's mainly attractive people being stalked or something. It's become a large documented thing in Me Too when people believed almost every claim since the actresses were mostly young and conventionally beautiful. But most indecent conduct isn't some creep following you or picking out attractive women. A large majority is done by someone you're close to or related to, in which case it's more about a power dynamic than conventional attractiveness. As someone who's been both young and hot and fat and frumpy, I found that the more conventionally attractive you are, the worse it is. Hot me was harassed every time I traveled home alone at night, and frumpy me enjoyed blissful invisibility. Not only the unwanted attention goes away, people are also less likely to help you or give you free stuff. There's a danger in taking on topics like this of suggesting any one group, in this case the conventionally attractive, have things better or worse than the rest. Hopefully, small conversations like the one I just quoted can highlight the unfairness that will affect people at all levels of perceived aesthetic value. The next comment summarizes one recurring theme in this thread quite succinctly. People can like you way too much or hate your guts with a burning passion really quickly based off nothing. Jogged my memory of a time when I was attending my cousin's Halloween birthday party. My cousin, drunk as a skunk as he should be, ended up smashing a bottle or glass, and I was cleaning it up. Another guy came over to give me a hand. Well, I guess his girlfriend, who I'd never met prior, too noticed and felt a way about it and targeted me the entire night. She kept taking jabs or making random comments about me. The solid proof of her raging, whatever she was on, was at the end of the night when they were leaving and she said goodbye to everyone and pointed at me and said, "But not you. Some people truly just suck." Close friends repeatedly dropping you or even straight up ghosting you when they develop unreciprocated feelings for you and it gets too painful for them. I've got serious abandonment issues. Dating can be hard because people create an image of who they want you to be. It's even harsher if you're attractive and a complete weirdo. People act like you're doing something wrong when you break their perfect image, like you're taking something away from them and ruining a good thing. I can imagine it being a con if people think attractive people are only good for their looks and nothing else. If an attractive person is very accomplished, I feel like others would say they got help from being good-looking and that they didn't work that hard. In my experience, attractiveness became a crappy and unfulfilling value. At times when my self-esteem was low, I often clung on to being attractive as if it was all I had going for me, and developed a dependency on external validation and comparing myself to others. People who are or view themselves as less attractive than you treat you like garbage purely because they don't like that you're better looking than them. This one is especially true for women. Achievements that you make or respect you gain, such as getting a prestigious project at work, being put down by coworkers to the boss wanting to sleep with you. For the longest time, I would just lay in bed after work and just wonder why certain coworkers didn't like me. I knew that my personality can't possibly be compatible with everyone, but it bothered me that people I only interacted with in pleasant, passing little conversations treated me coldly anyway. As one example, I would pick up shifts at a location where this woman always made faces and snarky comments about the lunches I brought to work. "That doesn't look good, to be honest." Or, "That smells off. Are you really going to eat it?" I had no idea how to respond, and she would tend to ignore me if I talked to her anyway. It was like 10 years later when I finally realized that my small size might have had something to do with it, considering she was a large woman who constantly talked about weight. And that bothered me even more, to be honest, because I agonized for months over what was wrong with me, and it turns out it was my looks? It never occurred to me that it could be something as petty as that, but apparently it was important enough to her to make a nervous 20-year-old feel that much more uncomfortable. I'm treated like an idiot, presumed uneducated or naive, not taken seriously until I prove myself, and my absolute least favorite thing, I can't tell if I'm being pursued for my body or my character. I've also been stalked and the victim of attempted unspeakable acts, which supposedly has nothing to do with the way I look, but I've had the urge to completely change so people stop looking at me at all. People never seem to think the partners you choose look good enough, and it's exceptionally irritating that they even expect you to care. I like this point. As someone who's occasionally punched well above his weight when it comes to dating, I can say that in some cases, eventually you learn to look at the people who judge you lacking as a partner with amusement and disdain. Maybe that's just me though. Girls saying they want to be friends and then they get all moody when you're friendly and don't want to flirt back. Probably worse for women, but still. People manipulate and hide things from you because they either want to satisfy themselves or use you to attract and influence others. You can easily end up out of your depth and in bad relationships without the tools or power to escape. You also attract narcissists. I'm attractive enough that I ended up dating a multimillionaire. She turned out to be controlling and violent and trapped me into a lease that I couldn't afford to leave, all because she liked that I was intimidatingly attractive. I won't make that mistake again. I was unattractive for the beginning of my life into my teens, then around my sophomore year, I became fairly attractive, lost weight, started taking care of myself, etc. The difference in the way people treated me was one of the worst things ever. Everyone was so nice, giving me so much attention, men especially. Once you realize how important looks are to social standing, your life changes a lot in a bad way. My senior year, I had gained all the weight back and all of that attention was gone. Now that I'm 27, I'm still very overweight, but I've learned how to be more confident and comfortable with myself and have attracted attention from people that actually care about me and not how I look. But it's a total mind frick for sure. My first summer job was in tech support. One of my coworkers was one of those human beings you'd just be in awe of if you met them. She was brilliant, Dean's List, biomed student, skipped a grade in school, and also unbelievably pretty. Gymnast turned varsity cheerleader. We had virtually no work to do and just kind of goofed around watching movies or chatting about stuff. Some of the things I remember her telling me about at the time were male friendships not feeling genuine because they were waiting to swoop in once she was single, finding it hard to be taken seriously for her intelligence sometimes, creeps, unwanted attention in public, not directly, but the sense that outside her family and a small group of her very trusted friends, that she might have felt like friendships were superficial. I just derived that from the cheerleader drama stories she shared. I was 18 and had just finished first year of uni as a socially awkward kid anyways, so none of this made sense to me, but looking back I learned a lot from her about stuff like that. People automatically assume that you're swimming in romantic prospects and oftentimes take up a bitter attitude to you for it. The worst I've encountered, while attending a party with a friend and an ex-girlfriend, one Italian girl suddenly stared at me for several minutes. Then later on she went to talk a bit to my ex and said, "I cannot believe he's your boyfriend. He's so handsome." What the frick? Then she came back at me while I was talking with my friends and waited there for maybe 15 minutes, staring at me, trying to talk to me. I didn't know at this point why she went up to my girlfriend, and I was feeling something was really off, so I've only really looked at her once in this and never really answered her. She left later on, and then I've learned what she said to my girlfriend. These people aren't the worst. I mean, they're not murderers or anything, but in my opinion, they really suck as human beings because they do not realize the damages they can do with such small talk and behavior. You're never left alone in public. If you do something weird, people are much more likely to notice. But it's far more acceptable to be weird when you're attractive. Being weird as an attractive person is seen as quirky. Headphones. Always. You can't admit how much effort it takes for a huge component of attractiveness. Fitness. So you just have to let people think that you're lucky to be so thin and that it's not a deliberate effort to get sleep, prioritize health, etc. I'm not attractive necessarily, but I'm fit at an age where many of my peers are convinced that getting fat and frumpy is automatic, and it's hard to navigate. I've tried not to counteract what some of these people say so as to not taint their perspective, but I will weigh in as a man of average to low looks but a weird metabolism. Some of us can do no exercise and eat junk food for a year and still look pretty lean and muscular, even if in reality we're kind of weak. So I say the last point isn't universal, but maybe slightly more at an older age. I knew a girl in college who was stunning and smart. She was a med student, and she also had a large chest. She could not have a normal relationship with anyone, women or men. Women were highly jealous, and men couldn't talk to her face. I imagine it made her feel intensely lonely. Overweight most of my adult life. Wife and I lost a lot of weight together and are now in fairly good shape. I never get used to hugs from the women in our social circle. Now I get a lot of attention and greetings hugs. It's a weird change. Wife is wearing more dresses, nothing overly sexy, just very attractive. I noticed most guys we meet watching her walk away or looking her over. We're very committed to each other, so it's not a worry, just weird to have the attention. People stop taking you seriously. It takes far more effort to get a salient point across. Depending if this is a con for you, extra attention. Quite frankly, if you're a woman, it's more difficult to be taken seriously at work, since people will think you're just a pretty face. Conversely, if you're in a client role, you may be put in front of the client more often because of your looks. If you're male, good-looking and semi-competent, you'll be promoted through the ranks very quickly, which is a huge pro. In general, regardless of gender, being good-looking does create tension within your gender and social circles, social interactions because you're viewed as competition in the dating pool. People only like the chase. 3 of my relationships eventually faded out because I was sick of hearing, "You're so pretty," and they know nothing of me as a person. I wanted quality time. I wanted someone to know me as a person. They ended up saying, "You're too nice, you're so caring, I don't deserve you," and it ended. I felt used. At the start of relationships, they go out of their way to do such special nice things for you. They're in it for the chase only. Definitely creeps. In the same vein, I cannot stand staring. It's a cultural thing, but subconsciously, I take it as a threat or challenge. Also, you can get more dates with anyone you want, but 99% of them only want to be physical, not to actually date you as a relationship material. You start to wonder if your personality is the problem. Friends of the opposite gender just don't exist. When I was ugly or overweight, child, teen, I had tons of male friends. As an adult, I've had guys end friendships with me once they found out I wasn't single, or when they decide I'm worth nothing beyond my aesthetic appeal. If they can't do the deed with me, then they want nothing to do with me, other than to stalk my Instagram. I'm sick of, men can't be friends with women. No, you just don't see my value beyond my reproductive organs. Being tempered and propositioned by people that didn't care that I was married, engaged, or in relationships themselves. It planted a seed that people are not as loyal as the perception they tell their significant others, and I brought it home at one point into my marriage. As a man, when someone much younger wants you, it can be intoxicating, and that temptation can be hard to control. Furthermore, when you reject some of these ladies, they go from wanting to screw you at first sight to mean and nasty and full of name-calling just because you won't cheat. Those good-looking people can be hiding evil minds. The older and less attractive I get, the better people in general seem to treat me. When I was young, late teens to early 20s, women were nasty and men wanted me for one reason and one reason only, which is also nasty. I was subject to some pretty unsavory behavior and called degrading names. When you're treated nicely, it's for ulterior motives. Now, I get along with other women, and nobody is unnecessarily and inexplicably nasty to me, and I've actually made decent male friends. Nobody has tried to screw me for social points in years. In general, people take me more seriously and make far less assumptions about my personality and my background. When you're attractive, people tend to assume that everything else in your life is or has been great too, and I swear they used to imagine me living on daddy's yacht, sunbathing, and only lifting a finger to go shopping, based on the assumptions people used to make about me and the way they treated me. I had a few older men call me princess and act like I needed to be taught lessons about hard work and friendship, which was infuriating because my family was homeless when I was growing up, and I'd been working since I was 14. But when you're pretty, people take one look at you and ask, "What would you know?" Overall, people behave very strangely around people they view as conventionally attractive, and they make a lot of assumptions. There's a lot of bias, and that is a massive con. People almost never accurately judged me as a person. I felt like many people looked at me, but nobody actually saw me. Getting older has been a relief. People ask me actual questions about who I am and where I come from now. Far less people look at me, but I feel more seen than I ever did as an attractive young woman. I can't wait to turn 40. Now that I work in a female-dominated environment, I take extra care to make the younger, beautiful women feel seen and not just looked at. I like this approach of using your experience from both sides of the perceived aesthetic aisle and using it to empathize with those who suffer from the undue prejudices of society. People think your feelings can't be hurt. They assume your confidence is at a 100 and they can criticize your whole look without ever hurting you. Or maybe they want to hurt you for it. And it's difficult to get people to listen to the content of what you're saying. And you can say something insanely profound and be hit with, "Well, you're too pretty to worry about such things." The assumptions people make, that's the sucky part. You're more likely to experience manipulation or be outright preyed upon. For women, people won't take you seriously, and if you marry an unattractive guy with money, you'll probably be seen as a trophy wife by others. Other girls may find you threatening. If you have a friend of the opposite gender, their partner may find you threatening. My job has put me in positions with female models, and the main things I've noticed are a lot of people neg them. It's like they can't imagine this beautiful person can be nice or smart, so they constantly chip away at them, and many times it works. Being attractive doesn't bring down the cost of bacon. Getting constantly hit on by a gender you're not into. Boyfriend and I are both decent looking and straight, and 80% of people who hit on us are the same gender as us. We both give off gay vibes without trying, I guess. I'm not even that attractive, and yet going to clubs and stuff gives me the ick. Like, I love dancing and hanging out with my friends, but I'm so sick of creeps trying to grab me, or just following me around or whatever. If I'm on a night out these days, I usually only go to clubs and bars if I'm with a mixed group of friends of guys and girls, because as soon as it's just girls, random guys seem to think it's an invitation to get all up in our faces. Usually they leave me alone if I'm also with male friends, but even then, it doesn't always work. I just want to be able to dance without being grabbed or touched. What's the most petty, passive-aggressive move you've ever played? I just hit the passive-aggressive zenith. Played a YouTube video of someone eating crisps loudly while someone else ate crisps loudly, because I can't be bothered to ask them to stop. Basically, this guy is one of those people who manages to do everything that is annoying. Whether it's banging desks, talking loudly on the phone, laughing loudly, munching crisps with his mouth open, etc., all distracting in our very small office. I'm not saying I'm not a prick, but I'm tired of picking the guy up on things he should be able to work out for himself. Has anyone else surprised themselves with their own petty behavior? As pointed out, it probably isn't properly passive-aggressive. The reason I didn't directly approach the guy is because I've done it so many times with so many other things that he's becoming combative and resistant. I'm tired of getting into semi-pissy debates, and I'm at the point where I think he should start actively taking responsibility for the things he does in the small office we share. I always ask if people mind if I put on music or close curtains, etc. I was on the receiving end of some epic passive aggression once. I was in the 12 items or less line at the grocery store, and as usual had counted my items before I got in the line. An older couple got in line behind me and clearly did not think I had done so. They spoke loudly to each other, I guess hoping to embarrass me. "That doesn't look like 12 items to you, does it, Marge?" etc. This continued on, and when it was my turn, one started, "Let's count. 1, 2, 3. I started wondering if maybe I miscounted, feeling a little panicky as I usually try not to be a D-bag. Then finally, 10. Oh, The cashier laughed. I needed to do nothing. The backfiring of their plan was plenty. Although I now look on that situation with that single regret. I should have also written a check, asked for paper and plastic, and for rolls of quarters. Darn it. I would have grabbed 3 packs of gum and put them on the belt with my stuff just to screw with them after that little act. I used to be a resident advisor in a college dorm. One of the dorm activities was on personal hygiene, with free stuff available like deodorant, shampoo, razors, etc. One of my residents couldn't be bothered to speak with his roommate about his disgusting habits, but he sure took about a dozen of those flyers and put them up all over his roommate's side of the room. Ah, that's like a lower effort version of the good old post-it note. Best friend of any passive-aggressive flatmate. The neighbor in my girlfriend's apartment will let their gosh darn alarm go off for like a good 5 minutes before they even try to stop it. They don't hit snooze like a normal person. They just lay there and let it buzz over and over and over again. It was going on longer than usual, so I ended up pulling out my phone and turning on the meltdown alarm and basically pressing it directly into the wall. On top of the horrendously loud noise, it was also buzzing the whole wall. They turned their alarm off within 10 seconds and haven't done it since. If this ever happens again, get a screaming mini alarm clock from any truck stop. It's 110 decibels of get the frick out of bed. Treat it like a grenade. Set it for 1 minute, it's a timer, and toss it in their window. It's brought people to tears because they couldn't turn it off. Oh, thank you for that wonderful idea. My neighbors don't have a problem with their 16-year-old son and his idiot friends going out at 2 a.m. drunk as frick in their backyard, yelling and screaming till the sun comes up. Nobody around will say anything because I live with a bunch of old fricks and I don't want them damaging my car. So I just ordered one of these. This Sunday, I'm throwing it in their yard the second they decide to go in, because they always go out every weekend and do this crap. It's going to be so worth the money, even if I have to do it every weekend. My old roommate's friend always used to come over and drink my cans of Pepsi. I'm on a pretty tight budget, but like to treat myself with said cans, so you can imagine how upset this made me. One day I hid all the cans but one, which I coated with nail biter. The second he realized something was wrong, he poured himself a glass of water using the only glass on the drying rack, the glass coated in nail biter. I live on a typical American suburb street. My neighbor just got a new job with a company-provided vehicle. He has a 1-lane driveway, so he parks this huge work van in the road, directly in front of my house. It's all I can see when I look out the front window. I casually mention it to him now, so that he could park it in front of his house and not mine. He just chuckles to himself and starts talking about something else. For the next week, I parked my car in front of his house to see if he enjoyed looking at my car every day. Luckily, he got the message and now parks in front of his home and not mine. Something similar is happening where I live. I live at the end of a cul-de-sac in the corner, and the guy in the middle of the end parks one of his cars outside his house, blocking our driveway to the point where we have to snake around his car in reverse. Meanwhile, his other car sits in his driveway that is thin but long enough for 2 cars. Did I also mention that both he and his wife are retired and rarely leave the house? We have other neighbors with similar situations, so everyone keeps moving their cars like a game of chess to park in front of each other's houses to annoy each other. They are all gradually getting more and more teed off with each other, and just when they are at the tipping point, I'm soon to be adding a new car to the scenario. I will park it in the worst place and watch the drama. Skip passive-aggressive, go fully aggressive. Buy a beta car, spend under $500. Insure minimally. Put the beta in your driveway. Wait until your neighbor blocks your driveway. Nail the neighbor's car. Blame the neighbor for being parked in front of your driveway. Take no responsibility. Repeat until the point has been made. Sell the beta for whatever you paid for it. I blow kisses to angry drivers. I'm a guy. On an airplane flight this past summer, the guy in front of me reclined his seat until he was practically resting his head on my chest. I politely asked him if he would please put his seat up. He just looked at me and said no. I then turned my air vent on full blast, aimed it right at his face. When he reached up to adjust it, I pushed his hand away. "Excuse me, that's my air vent. I like it that way." He ended up leaning forward the entire flight, but left his seat reclined practically to my chest. We were both uncomfortable the entire flight, but neither of us would give in. As my wife put it, so this is what happens when an inconsiderate butthole meets a passive-aggressive pee-pee. Later, several people have called bullcrap on my claim that the seats tilted back all the way to my chest. I'm 5'10" and my legs aren't long so that my knees will touch the seat in front of me. For that reason, I don't usually have a problem with people in front of me leaning back. I don't really enjoy it, but it's not a big deal. I don't know if this guy's seat was broken or if it was some sort of sleeper sofa unit that belonged in a long-haul flight or what, but I ended up looking down on that guy's face like I was his dentist. It sucked. I was at Costco once and they had massage chairs at the end of the aisle, right by the crutches and folding wheelchairs, etc. Two older women were complaining about me using it, making remarks about how I was abusing the equipment or some crap, so I struggled to get off the chair, gave a look of pain and wheeled off in one of the wheelchairs. I kept one of my hands shaking and went right past them. Their faces were one of the best things ever. In conclusion, used muscular dystrophy to screw with someone. Oh my god. I think the most perverse part of this account is that even from the way the author has written it, I'm not 100% sure one way or the other whether they actually have that particular disability or any disability at all. I just hope the ladies in question feel terrible regardless. I was watching Batman at a theater and the kid sitting in front of me kept rocking his seat back and knocking me in the knees. I asked him to stop, he glared, then stopped for 5 minutes. But he started again and kept intentionally rocking it back to hit my knees. So I put my foot at the base of the chair so he couldn't rock it backwards. He turns around, glares at me, and mutters, B-word. This kid couldn't have been older than 11. So I let him keep rocking and waited until he was winding back to rock it really hard. Then, when he was at his apex, I kicked the back of the seat hard. It smacked him in the head and he whiplashed forward. Needless to say, he didn't lean back for the rest of the movie. In conclusion, I kicked a kid in the back of the head, and I'm not entirely certain what passive-aggressive means. You delivered the kick that the kid needed, but not the one he wanted. Some men just want to watch the chairs rock.
He merely adopted the chair. You were born in it.
Let me tell you how I got this whiplash.
When you lean back, you have my permission to die.
There's these two girls who sit behind me in one of my classes that don't shut up. No matter what my professor says, they always have to talk about it between the two of them. After doing this, it's always leading into longer discussions between them. It's freaking annoying because I'm actually interested in what my professor has to say. He tells some pretty interesting stories. One day, I'd had enough of it. When they started talking again, I took my laptop out and made a new Word document. I made the font large enough to where they'd be able to read it and typed 4 simple words. Shut the frick up. I cleared my throat very loudly, I should add, and just slightly moved out of the way to where they would be able to read it. That was 2 weeks ago, and they haven't said a word in class since. I had the same problem in my philosophy class. For about a week, I would type everything that they said. At the end of the week, I handed them each a transcript of their conversations. I pulled the same thing last finals period. I was on the quiet floor of our student center, where not even the laptops are allowed. The clicking of the keyboard is too loud. There was this girl furiously typing on her laptop and having a cell phone conversation about her child termination. It was very, very distracting, and no amount of throat clearing and angry looks got her attention. So I scribbled, "Shut the frick up," in Sharpie on my notebook, coughed loudly, and held it up for her to see. She got up and left, and I got a very enthusiastic round of golf claps. In college, I had the worst roommate. She would stay up all night, sleep all day long, and dramatically sigh or groan if I accidentally woke her up by, being in my dorm room during the day. She also could not shut up for about 5 minutes. She literally wandered around our room muttering to herself mostly, "Frick!" and "Jesus Christ!" And if she wasn't doing that, she was sighing and groaning and slamming drawers shut. She also left food that should have been refrigerated out on her desk for weeks at a time, including stacks of burgers still in their paper wrapping. It smelled. Anyway, she mentioned once how she hated living in the dorms because she couldn't smoke in there. I casually brought up how my last roommate broke her contract and moved into a house mid-semester, and she just loved it. New roommate got excited and started to look into getting an apartment. What I didn't mention was that it costs $1,000 plus that month's dorm fee to break said contract, and apparently she managed to sign up for this without noticing that fine print either, because for about a week after she had screaming matches on the phone with her mum about the money. A week later she was gone and I had the room to myself for the rest of the semester. It was great. I would feel bad, but living with a frantic, swearing, sleep-deprived burger hoarder was too much for me. In conclusion, talked Oscar the Grouch into breaking room contract, resulting in unforeseen expenses on her part. Oofed. I mean, she was probably outright told by student housing that it would cost her money, so hopefully decided to move despite that fact of life. It just sucks that it sounds like her mother had to foot the bill. Mine is a painful memory to relive, but I'll do it for the sake of this thread. Me and my then university roommate shared this tiny room with one double-decker bed, a cupboard, 2 tables, and a mirror. The mirror is depressingly important in this story. It was opposite the bed so that I, sleeping on the top bunk, could actually see what my roommate was doing underneath. You know where this is going. So one day I woke up to this horrible squelching sound. In my mind, I knew what it was. I just didn't want to entertain the idea. It must not be that. It can't be. Furtively, I glanced at the mirror, knowing that the reflection would take a little bit of my soul with it. Sure enough, it was my roommate, under my bunk, pumping vigorously in his boxers. I have never seen anyone beat it that feverishly. It was almost beautiful in some sick, perverse way. Okay, so the problem was that he kept doing this. I kept waking up to the sound of the guy who watches Matrix Reloaded daily, frantically beating off in his boxers. Even worse, sometimes he'd let out an ugh sound that chills me to this day. I cannot watch Japanese adult flicks because of him. I didn't even know what to do. Should I accept my fate and consider this morning jerk session as some kind of cruel alarm clock? One fateful day I was woken up to the usual squelching sound, and I decided to do something about it. I just cleared my throat. He immediately stopped. And it was then that he knew I knew. We never spoke again, and he moved the following semester. You fricker. I know you're on Reddit. If you're reading this, I'm going to come and spank the monkey in front of you one day. Drunk. You mother fricker. I wish I'd employed a similar passive-aggressive tactic on the guy who sits directly behind me. He's insanely annoying, such that he's infamously never sat with his actual team. They rush to fill any seats that come free. And there's a long list of people who've said, "If you sit me near him, I will quit. Seriously." Highlights include, he seems to have old smoker's lung/throat problems, such that his voice always escapes as a gurgled squeal. He can't help that, but he shouts, of course, so it's akin to sharing the room with a banshee. He spends hours per day cramming Bombay mix into his mouth. He then chews it with his front teeth for maximum crunch volume. He'll still use the phone or shout at people while eating. Farts openly and often. Has an incredibly loud and annoying SMS received tone, which needless to say is triggered several times per hour, sometimes many times a minute as he conducts some sort of his extracurricular activities exclusively by SMS. Of course, his desk phone habits are annoying too. Keypad tones set to on, volume set to max, and he opens many conversations using the speaker setting. He has dozens of keys plus his security tags on a long chain which he slaps and drags about on his desk like he's a fricking poltergeist. That's right, he's a banshee and a poltergeist. I cracked after weeks of this and told him to shut the frick up. On a Friday morning when he was screeching at the team opposite solidly for an hour telling his version of what passes for a joke. He responded with abuse, so I went unpunished, but I still know I made a mistake being aggressive and swearing at work. On second thoughts, I wish I'd killed him with a stapler. I'm a live sound tech. My job's success rate depends on me being passive-aggressive. Oh, you turned your guitar amp up again? Cool, I hope you like me cranking the crap out of your guitar in your monitors now, butthead. I've been to shows where the band members straight up sit there and yell at the techs. Isn't that someone you should be polite to, considering they can make your entire set sound like crap? I've been yelled at from some idiot on stage for problems they were creating. Oh, not to mention a room full of people between us. I muted his mics, sipped on a beer, and stood there and smiled at him as he had a tantrum. Does this count? Drunk buttholes being loud outside residence buildings at some ungodly hour on a Sunday night. Hey, do you guys ever watch? A watch? Yeah, I need to know what time it is. 3:30. Okay, cool. Now that you know that it's 3:30, can you shut the frick up? Oh yeah, this one. Had a guy watering his garden at 2:30 a.m. once, in the summer, when you have your windows open. I leaned out. Hey mate, why don't you water your garden at 4 a.m. like normal people? Whenever some butthole is tailgating me on the road, I hit the windshield cleaner button and just hold it. Usually, I can get a good consistent spray of water to obstruct their view. They usually change lanes after that. Bonus points for me if their windshield is dirty and their wipers are bad, leaving behind a dirty, muddy mess. Also, if you're all in on this idea, you can take a pin and adjust the angle on one of your nozzles to spray directly over your car for maximum effectiveness. I had a wagon and it had a rear view sprayer, so I pulled it out and found the best angle to hit tailgaters right in the window. It was awesome. People would either get super mad and go into a rage, or most of the time start laughing and back off. I mean, I can't possibly condone this, as you could cause a crash if they're particularly jumpy and unprepared, but it is damn funny, and I'd be tempted to try it. I put 3 staples in my stapler at a time so people will stop using the one on my desk. There's an empty desk right next to me with a fully loaded stapler no one ever uses. I realize this is ridiculous. I was in Walmart once and this kid was screaming. I tried to ignore it. I thought about asking the parent to quiet the kid down. You could hear him through the whole store. Finally, I just stood at the end of the aisle they were on and started screaming back at him. The mother was horrified, but after about 10 seconds of yelling back and forth, the kid finally stopped. My mother would do the same with me when I was a child. Once I threw myself to the ground and started screaming, and she just lay down beside me and watched me with her poker face until I stopped. It worked every time. Every time I was working on a good tantrum, my mother would offer to clear out a space for me on the floor and tell me to let her know when I was finished. The residents at the pool I work at complain about everything, making the shifts that my co-workers and I work extremely trying on our patience. It eventually got to the point where a number of residents petitioned to get one of the guards written up because she was sucking a lollipop in an inappropriate manner while on stand. As head guard of the facility, all of these complaints went to me. Eventually, I got sick of this and took action. What the residents didn't realize up until about halfway through the summer is that the pool they use has a number of small rules that no one really acknowledges, because honestly, it's not worth anyone's time to enforce them. These rules include things such as enforcing designated areas to eat and a sort of blanket ban on alcohol. From July 25th on, under my authority, every guard was required to reprimand all residents on every single infraction, in order to give them a taste of their own medicine. I can honestly say there is nothing more satisfying than having one of my guards stop a hated resident from enjoying a few drinks with whoever they're with, and then looking them right in the eye and just absorbing their hatred. It's sublime. When I was pretty young, maybe 13-ish, my younger brother, 11-ish, kept frustrating me by stealing my CD player, and I was out for clever revenge. We had a CD recorded by a band from the local church called Flying Sheep. Something something Jesus and flying animals, you know the drill. The first track of the CD was 45 seconds of sheep noises. When he went to sleep, I snuck into his room quietly, located my CD player, set it to loop track 1 and turned the volume way down. About every 5 minutes I'd sneak in again and turn the volume up a little more. I did this for about 2 hours until there was nothing but bleating sheep at full volume about 4 feet from his head. My brother slept like a log, so he slept for the whole 7 hours, with sheep noises beamed directly into his brain. He woke up pretty angry. Apparently he had dreamed about trying to herd aggressive sheep all night long. Sweet revenge. If someone is really annoying me with what they're saying, or chewing loudly, smacking gum loudly, or making annoying drum noises with their mouth, I will sometimes turn music on and slowly turn it up to the point where I can't hear them over it. Sometimes I will even look them dead in the eyes while I do it. Well, that's better than my sighing tactic. Bravo! Whenever my roommate shaves, he always leaves little bits of hair in and around the sink. As other people's hair has always made me cringe, I repeatedly asked him to stop, but there would always be hair in the sink. So I waited. For 3 months, I grew my pubic hair to the most glorious length it has ever been and shaved it all off into the sink, and left it. I haven't had any problems with my bathroom since then. In conclusion, a wild bush appeared. The last 4th of July, some friends and I went down to the pier to watch the fireworks. We were sitting down when this couple decided the perfect spot for them was standing directly in front of us. I'd been drinking a bit, so it seemed like a good idea to bark like a dog. Not like a mean pit bull or something, more like a high-pitched chihuahua. I do a really good impression, by the way. They started turning around looking for the dog until they realized it was me. I looked them in the eyes and started barking with an even higher pitch. I think they thought I was crazy because they just whispered to each other and left. The old man sitting next to me gave me a high five. Watching my daughter at gymnastics, woman next to me was smacking her gum like a cow. I pulled out a pen and sat there clicking the button until she got fed up and left. What's the worst thing a protagonist ever did in a children's movie or show? Tink in Peter Pan is an absolute monster. She tried to get the Lost Boys to murder Wendy. The whole film is full of aberrant morality. I mean, that's relatively on the low end of her atrocities. She sells out Pan and the Lost Boys to the pirates because of her hatred and jealousy. In the book, it's even worse because the pirates aren't buffoons, but highly competent and malicious. Smee isn't as much of a lovable idiot in the original. He's a sadistic torturer whose sword is called Johnny Corkscrew because he wiggles it in the wound after shanking someone. He's described as a genial man who's not as severe as the other pirates to the kids, but he's also described as one who would stab with no offense. Don't forget Peter Pan was a monster too. He'd teach kids how to fly, but never how to land, and they'd just fly until they starved to death. Lab rats. The dad/inventor kept the kids in cages, and it wasn't until he married and got a stepson that they got rescued. Then everyone was, oh well, good times. Honestly, a lot of Disney shows and other kids' shows have creepy undertones like this. This won't make much sense to anyone who's never watched the show, but I'll never forget an episode of Wizards of Waverly Place where Alex makes a new friend that turns out to be part of this underground uprising against the unfair rules on who gets to have powers. She seemingly joins her, only to find out she was actually tricking her so she could turn her into the authorities. They act like this was a huge, brave, and heroic thing she did, and that the people fighting against unfairness were those evil people who deserved to be punished. Basically, the message was that you should never question authority, and those who try to stand against unjust laws should be turned in. It really creeped me out. Oh, it turns out I misremembered that last part. It's actually worse than that. She freezes her to give her powers to her brother, and then Alex's little brother Max knocks her over and shatters her as the laugh track plays, and they act like it's no big deal. They literally kill her and shrug it off. Man, the people who made that show are messed up, especially making it a kids' show. Princess Poppy in the Trolls movie. The whole problem and everyone nearly dying was all because she couldn't accept and let someone be happy not singing and dancing. I think they handled her better in the second film when Branch outright tells her she's not listening to anyone and making things worse. The Fat Controller in Thomas the Tank Engine bricking up Henry the Green Train. All Henry wanted was a coat of waterproof paint or a break from the work till the rain stopped. Nope, brick up the tunnel and take up the tracks. Frick you, engine, you work for me. Is the Fat Controller really the good guy? The trains are enslaved and taken to the junker's yard if not really useful. Dude is worse than that Grandpa Joe. Ha ha ha, laughed the Fat Controller. You are wrong. There are a lot of downright concerning implications of the Thomas verse. These talking, thinking, feeling creatures are often subjected to downright dangerous work conditions and punished terribly if they voice dissent. That show haunted the young narrator once upon a time. Agent Black from Johnny Test casually and nonchalantly says, I blew up Malaysia. Also, what I find funny, blowing up Malaysia only gets them down to the level of police officer. Here's my entry to help get conversation going. In the 2005 Disney movie Chicken Little, the school bully, Foxy Loxy, gets teleported by aliens and suffers brain damage resulting in a massive personality change. When the aliens move to return her to normal, Runt of the Litter stops them, saying she was now perfect. It's then implied the two become romantically involved. Let's not forget Buck Cluck being a really crap father to Chicken Little. Frick it, this whole movie just sucks. I don't think it would be remiss to say, frick Buck Cluck. Sportacus and Stephanie treating Robbie Rotten badly, all because he didn't want to be active. Let him live in Lazy Town in peace. Those two came to a place literally called Lazy Town and tried to force everyone to be more active and stuff. If anything, Robbie Rotten should have been the hero for trying to maintain how the town should be. You speak the truth. If you think about it, Robbie Rotten is far more heroic. Sportacus thinks that being active is the key to happiness and well-being. As such, he tries to convince the kids to be more active, which in turn requires him to be active. Okay, sure. Now, Robbie Rotten thinks that the key to happiness and well-being is to be inactive. As such, he tries to convince the kids to be less active, which in turn requires him to be active. Now, this is Robbie making his day worse to improve someone else's day. Ignoring the question of which of them is correct in their worldview, it's obvious that Robbie Rotten is substantially more selfless. The episodes often show Robbie bothered, usually not by the noise the children are making, but by the idea that they are being active. He goes through huge amounts of work and planning to correct this, often making elaborate games for kids in the process. Finally, let's examine the basic claim that Sportacus makes that the children would be happier and healthier if they subscribed to his lifestyle. They do seem to enjoy his sports, though Ziggy often has his complaints. However, compare this to the joy the children had in Robbie Rotten's You're a Pirate game, which involved nothing but props, imagination, and singing. Everyone loved it. You might think then that at least Sporticus is correct that the children would be healthier if they followed his advice, but once again I say that Robbie is right. If you trap Sporticus in a cage, he starts to pass out in mere minutes from fruit withdrawal. He might be able to outrun Robbie, sure, but it isn't like Robbie isn't capable enough to build a treehouse, ships, and whatnot. The Cat in the Hat nearly pummeled a young child's skull with a baseball bat. That movie is hilarious and yet so screwed up. He legit cuts his tail off and swears in front of children. In High School Musical, when everyone manipulates Troy into saying he doesn't care about Gabriella at all while recording the whole thing so that she sees it. God, if I was Troy and learned about that, I'd have quit the basketball team. If my friends couldn't stand by me and sold me out like that, there's no reason to be with them. Same with Gabriella and her science friends. Of course, they didn't manipulate her into saying things she'd regret and film it, but they still thought her potentially being distracted from their competition was enough of a reason to mess up her relationship. It's been a while since I've seen it, I'm sorry if I made mistakes. In the Rapunzel TV series, there's a controversial episode in which Rapunzel, after having an argument with Eugene in which she disagrees with his advice, accidentally goes back in time to a point when Eugene was a thieving teen. During this episode, she appears as one of the Stabbington brothers and ends up changing Eugene's views in the future to match hers by the end of the show. Eugene has no idea this has even happened. It's pretty controversial because while Rapunzel didn't mean to do it, she sort of forced a core personality change in him, and the show never really addressed the argument because Eugene is just like, I don't know why we were arguing before because I agree. And the end of the episode. The following story is from a series that I've never seen, nor probably ever will see, but it definitely has some mind-bogglingly interesting implications from the way the author describes it. In the 4th season of Winx Club, the main characters get a new power-up, the Believix, and it's a mess. They each get a new power to use at their own discretion. Here's a quick description of what these powers let them do. 1. The Strength of Life. Bloom. It lets her make people believe in magic and help them overcome their weaknesses. She decides what qualifies as a weakness. She overrides a person's free will to make them believe in magic, which just so happens to make the girls stronger and rewrite their personality if she doesn't like it. Dawn of Light. Stellar. It makes her people more cooperative and accepting. Basically, she overrides another person's free will, so they do what she says. Breath of the World. Flora. It lets her make people show more appreciation for nature. Nice on paper, but it basically makes people ignore potentially more important tasks or forego certain technologies in favor of nature. Bright Heart. Muser. This is actually the most normal because aside from the usual of making people believe in magic, its only other effect is to convince people that they can change. Gem of Mind. Techna. To quote the official description of this ability, she can use it to make people think correctly. I think that's enough info. She decides how people should think and magically imposes that way of thinking onto them. The Spirit of Courage, Aisha. This is also very basic, the same as the first one with the added bonus of making people braver, but one use in particular rubbed me the wrong way. In one scene, she made a girl walk through a wall of fire to escape the burning building. The girl with water magic whose best friend is on the way to becoming an insufferable Mary Sue, and whose fire magic can extinguish any flame with a snap of her fingers. There was literally no need to endanger that girl like that. They had 2 people on scene who could not only have saved the building, but also all 6 of them could have repaired it with magic. Overall, those girls are a threat to society. They're emotionally unstable, have 0 coping mechanisms for when they get sad, and are basically demigods. Musa once saw her boyfriend with another woman, and she just ran away crying like a kid. She has sound-based powers. She could have easily listened to what they were saying. I put forth that Santa is a total butthole in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I can understand the young reindeer making fun of Rudolph's red nose. Kids are mean and will easily make fun of someone for being different. But then Santa walks in. He could have set everyone straight right there. Explained how it's our differences that make everyone special and all that. Nope, he readily agrees with everyone that Rudolph is a lost cause and even tells Donna he should be ashamed of his son's red nose. Da frick? Until he needs him, then all of a sudden he's part of the group and useful and liked. That's some fit in or go fricking die if I ever saw it. Any deviations from the norm will not be tolerated unless it's exploitable. Ho ho ho! Land Before Time when they're sleeping in the footprint and Sarah tries to wake them up gently and quietly. Littlefoot starts being loud and attracts the sharp tooth, causing him to lose the last gift his mother ever gave him, a tree star. Literally every single decision made by Robin Williams in Mrs. Doubtfire. What's interesting is that as a kid, you side with Robin Williams. Rewatching it as an adult, the guy was seriously dysfunctional, and his wife was absolutely right to divorce his butt. Also, you realize that Pierce Brosnan's character wasn't the villain you thought he was when you were a kid. He was a legitimately nice, solid guy dating a woman with 3 kids going through a contentious divorce. He was a saint, but ended up almost choking to death. Batman shutting down a machine that was turning Matt Hagen, aka Clayface, back into a human because he was using an experimental thing stolen from his company. I never hated Batman more than that moment because the animated series Clayface is the most tragic fricking creature of a man there ever was. Ron Perlman always made me cry when he had that first moment where he says, "I'm not even a man." I cry every time. In the episode, he's falling apart and dying, then when he's there on the precipice of becoming human again, he can feel it. Batman tosses a batarang and cuts off the flow of the chemical. Fricking hated him for that. Yes, thank you. I hated that episode as a kid. Clayface had the chance to get his life back, but Batman stops it because he stole something? It felt so unfair. Fair to say that The Dark Knight has often done some pretty controversial things in his many iterations, but I'm not sure that anyone can look at his solution and agree it was the morally right thing to do by any means here. Perhaps some of you would disagree. Let me know. Sounds like what happened to Deadshot in that movie. Confronted him when he's out with his child for Christmas shopping, if I recall correctly. Carly from iCarly was a butthead. Remember that episode where she's attracted to the guy because he stole his brother's motorcycle? Then she dumps him because he was not manly enough because he collects plushies. Schneider's humor was so mean-spirited overall. Remember the one where Freddy says he didn't like Fred, and Fred made the whole video about quitting the internet forever, and Freddy was getting hate mail including a phone call from his aunt where she told him she hoped he fricking died? Then at the end they met Fred, and he tells him the whole thing was just made-up drama to bring attention to iCarly and his own channel, and he didn't even bother to fricking tell them first. Pretty much everyone in that show was a crap bag. The third Hokage really had Naruto living by himself. Poor, begging the ramen man to feed him. All this after promising his dying parents that he would take care of him. He was basically the ruler of the village and let the kid live in poverty for no reason. Goku giving Perfect Cell a damn sensu bean right before his emotional teenage son fought him to the death, over the fate of the Earth. A couple of people have said this, can you elaborate? Okay, so Perfect Cell is essentially a combination of all the strongest fighters on Earth. Fighters who have killed planet-destroying monsters, or a being who killed them all in an alternate timeline. Goku, in some sort of bizarre test, fought Cell and won, but didn't kill him, instead he healed him, which brought him to beyond his full strength thanks to alien biology, and made his son fight him for the fate of the planet, just to see if Earth will be okay if Goku dies. This led to his own death, giving his son PTSD, causes the end of the world in the next arc, thanks to Rival becoming evil thanks to a lack of a sparring partner whose power releases an intergalactic demon who destroys Earth. Dragon Ball is weird, I know, and makes both of his sons fatherless for the greater half of their childhood. The parents and parent trap. Let's separate our twins, take one each, and never tell our respective child that she has a sister. What the frick? Mr. Krabs drove his rival Plankton to take his own life by stalking and harassing him in a Pearl costume in the one-course meal episode of SpongeBob SquarePants. What about when SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs actively attempted to cover up what they thought was a murder? Also, didn't Bubble Buddy basically just watch a guy drown? There was some dark crap in SpongeBob. Fun fact, one of the recent SpongeBob episodes legitimately referenced Squidward trying to take his own life. Basically, Squidward and SpongeBob had to deliver a Krabby Patty to a bizarre mind-frickery land. Squidward tried to escape from the place by opening a series of doors until a jump scare of Squidward's face showed up. The UK version removed that part for some reason. Just saw an episode of Teen Titans the other day, and they spent nearly a whole episode trying to escape this witch that had mind-controlled them and was trying to eat them. When they finally trap her back in the cursed pie, it's a weird episode, they leave it outside the door of the teenage supervillain group so that they will get eaten. I can't frame this in any other way than attempted murder. Teen Titans, don't go. Not sure if it counts as a children's movie, but in Man of Steel, Superman grabs one of the Kryptonians and flies him straight into a gas station, causing a huge explosion. The gas station had multiple cars parked at the pumps. In other words, Superman, who later on cries over having to kill the villain intent on destroying his planet, straight up killed at least half a dozen people out of pure negligence and didn't bat an eye. There's a bunch of great videos on YouTube about this, but Superman is portrayed so badly in the DC movies. In the comics, he's such a nice guy. In the movies, he's an emotional robot. He sees an entire building blow up in front of him and just fricks right off. He doesn't even try to help. What the frick? I'm sure The Man of Steel doesn't count as a kids' movie as well. I was just desperate to be able to comment on one of the few things that I've actually seen in this collection of stories. Yes, Clark kills a whole bunch of people, and yes, he gives about 1,000th of a frick about it as he does for killing one genocidal Kryptonian general. Hey, remember when in Spider-Man Far From Home, Tony Stark left a high schooler an advanced military drone system with no instructions on how to use it? Like that's a thing that shouldn't exist at all, but much less in the hands of a teenager. Yeah, on the bus in the first hour of the movie, doesn't he accidentally order a hit on one of his classmates? Like, it's kinda weird that in Homecoming, he didn't let Peter have access to most of the stuff in his suit, but then in Far From Home, he's just like, you know what would be a good idea? Letting a teenager have a pair of glasses that could literally order an entire fleet of deadly drones to kill an entire population of people. I mean, at least leave him a manual that he has to read before he has full control over the glasses, surely. As told by Ginger. Fricking Dodie. Rather be popular and wanted than be a good friend to Ginger. I loved As Told by Ginger growing up, and Dodie was the biggest irritant on the show by far. Any little sliver of a chance that she could become popular, she'd drop Ginger and Macy in a heartbeat, only to come crawling back when it blew up in her face. Oh, that one kid, Greg? I don't know, from Diary of a Wimpy Kid. He fricking shuns his best friend for clout, breaks his arm, throws kids in a ditch in the rain, craps on his friend's comic idea, and blames his friend for getting him fired from being a hall monitor. At the beginning of Megamind, when they were just school kids, Metro Man is literally responsible for turning Megamind to villainy by ostracizing and bullying him. It turned out okay in the end, but it's bothersome he never addressed or apologized for his behavior. Willy Wonka literally disfigured 4 kids on his factory tour, not to mention all the slave labor. Butthole pays Oompa Loompas with cocoa beans. That's definitely below the minimum wage. In the first Harry Potter, Dumbledore gets to the end of the year when they count up all the points to see who was the best house. Gryffindor are dead last and Slytherin in first place, like literally 150 points ahead. Dumbledore announces Slytherin is the winner, but then he's like, "Hold up, I've got a couple of announcements for the final tally. Ron is good at chess, 50 points. Hermione is smart, 50 points. Harry is low-key the bravest guy I know, 100 points. Checks calculations, Gryffindor and Slytherin are tied. And Neville was able to have a direct conversation. 5 points. Gryffindor wins! The little girl who lets out all of the dinosaurs at the end of what I think is the second Jurassic World movie. The dinosaurs are about to be gassed to death or something, and they make a moral decision to let them out, since they have a right to live and survive. So the little girl lets them loose, and almost immediately, the dinosaurs are released and kill a bunch of the villains in the movie. We're supposed to cheer, as the audience I guess, that the villains are finally getting their comeuppance, but I mean these dinosaurs aren't sentient or moral like humans. They weren't killing bad people, they were just killing people, and the good guys unleashed human-murdering dinosaurs on the planet. Like, no crap. Within just a few short moments, people died when they let them out of their cages. Harry Potter being left to a known abusive family by a society of wizards has to be high up there. Actually, the whole of Hogwarts is pretty fricked up. They're so irresponsible. They literally teach kids how to basically make Rohypnol. And they sent Harry and his crew into a literal death forest where a powerful unicorn-killing wizard was hiding. Part of why I love/hate Umbridge so much, it's super effective when the lady comes along whose punishments are so fricked up, even by wizard standards. Umbridge is just such a perfect microcosm of petty, official tyranny. We've all met Umbridge in one guise or another, and the hatred people like that stir up in almost everyone is distilled into her character. She's like the platonic form of the parking warden who delights in seeing someone's car towed away. The bureaucrat who barely suppresses a giggle as your dream house has its planning denied. The port official who politely but gleefully informs you that at his say-so you won't be allowed to board the ferry to go on holiday because of a slight paperwork mistake. She's Orwell's proverbial boot stamping on a human face forever. She's the Vogons if someone made a serious take on the concept. She's the personification of the system triumphing over the individual. She's the meat grinder from another brick-in-the-wall video that homogenizes children into a uniform paste. Umbridge absolutely nails that whole archetype, and the fact that she's so memorable is because we've all met her. I dare say Umbridge is Rowling's greatest character, for the sheer hatred she instills in absolutely everyone. The Jedi taking children from their family and encouraging emotional repression. I just started watching Clone Wars recently, having missed it during the actual run. So far, I've seen at least 1 or 2 fake surrenders by the Jedi, and I was like, that's an actual war crime. You can't just do that. I mean, that's just a surefire way to make sure your enemy doesn't accept surrenders anymore and just murders you. Not just emotional repression as well. Many children are taken from distinct species, cultures, and traditions. They indoctrinate them into a cult-like order of mystics, teach them feelings are wrong, familial bonds are wrong, and fraternal bonds are wrong, carnal pleasures and vices are wrong, and suggest that abstinence is important. Preach peace and harmony, and teach them how to use a laser sword and mystic powers to enforce their peaceful ways and the ideals of the Senate. Jingle All the Way is a story about a dad who punches and lies to everyone he meets over the course of a day, only to steal a toy for his kid. As much as I loved the show as a kid and still like it now, I'm a lot older and more cynical. And I can't get over the plain and simple truth that SpongeBob is unforgivably annoying when you really think about it. He's an excellent cook and a good and supportive friend and generally a good soul. But overall? Yeah, I'm quite sympathetic to the living hell Squidward lives in on some days. The older I get, the more I understand Squidward. You either die a SpongeBob or you live long enough to see yourself become a Squidward. What is the worst second-hand embarrassment you've had to suffer through? I was in a class with about 50 other people when this really nice quiet guy stood up and started to play Gangnam Style out of his phone and started doing the dance with a wide grin on his face. Nobody laughed, so he sat down after about 10 seconds of singing and dancing, and the lecturer proceeded to carry on with the lecture. Gangnam Style, frickin' hell. That brings me back to some bad memories. I worked in the ad industry, and every company suddenly wants to be in and go viral with Gangnam Style. A few good months after it hit its peak, those hours pleading with clients that filming their employees doing the dance was a bad idea, Lord help me. Yeah, he showed up to all the other lectures as usual for the rest of the semester, but just didn't really say anything. He was always quite reserved, so I didn't really notice a change in his behavior. Looking back on it, I do feel sorry for him because I used to listen to that song every day, and maybe I could have offered him a sympathy laugh, but at the time I thought he just looked like a bit of a member. In middle school, a kid decided to don his karate wear and break a brick for a talent show. This intense music starts playing and he comes out, bows his head and hits the brick. It doesn't break. He tries a couple more times, it remains unperturbed. He stomps off the stage in tears. I'm sure to console him, people told him, nobody will remember this in 10 years. It's been more than 10 years. I still remember him as the kid who couldn't break the brick. Stuck on a cruise ship for 3 days after my friend proposed to his girlfriend on the first fricking day, and she said no. The same first night she made out with a random guy in the hot tub. I'm honestly not sure how devastated my friend actually was, but it was intensified by the fact that he had drunk himself insensible by 2 p.m. every day, which would lead to him going to beg her to get back with him. At one point, she was sitting on the new guy's lap at the bar, and he grabbed her hand and confessed his love for her, for what must have been the 5th time in 2 days. It was a constant battle of trying to pull him away and convince him to either go to sleep or come with us to another part of the ship. He is a good friend, so I felt terrible for him because that was super crappy on her part, and tried to help him all he would allow, but it was awful to watch. And by the end of the cruise, it seemed like the entire boat knew what had happened. When I tried to bring it up with my girlfriend, who was on the cruise with me as well, days after we got home, she straight up refused to talk about it, saying that it was painful enough at the time, so we never need speak of it. I mean, honestly, it sounds like that was a good relationship to get out of if that's how both parties behaved. Some commenters expanded on this theory below. Was the proposal an attempt to save the relationship? Guys often propose when they feel the person slipping away from them. A common case is a girl wanting to back away from any serious commitment, but the guy actually wants it. I feel like this isn't 100% of the whole story here. No story that makes someone out to be that much of a victim is 100% the whole story. Like, I'm sure it was super messed up, but every situation has 2 stories. I think on a ship, each story is called a deck, actually. Have this uncle who's extremely cheap and once took us out to dinner. After he got the bill, he asks for the menu again and takes out his calculator and starts double-checking the bill prices and menu prices. This goes on for 15 minutes while the waiter patiently waits next to the table. At the end, he realizes he forgot his wallet and asks us to pay. I don't think I've ever tipped that generously. He didn't forget. No crap. We have printed tip suggestions ranging from 18 to 25% with the amount the tip would be and the total your bill would come to at the bottom of our receipts at my job. They're mainly for people who don't want to calculate it in their head or people from cultures that don't tip. But some people really believe that you have to tip one of those exact amounts and want to speak to a manager about being swindled. Even when we explain that they're suggestions, they somehow think they're requirements. Airline pilot here. The captain and I had a guy from another airline riding in the jump seat between us in the cockpit of a US airline jet. The captain was a bit of a blowhard loudmouth and decided to make a comment when he saw an Air India plane. You know what I hate most about Indian women is the big red dot on their forehead. The jump seater said, "My wife is Indian," and produced a photo from his wallet of his family, including his Indian wife with the bindi on her forehead. The captain only made it worse while he squirmed by asking some crap like, is she from Eastern India or Southern India? Because I'm referring to the ones from... And my mind was cringing so horribly I blanked out on the rest of the conversation.
Oh, so he wasn't a racist, just a regular racist.
Recently went to a wedding where the groom had 5 or 6 different groomsmen, and they all gave a speech. The first few were pretty good and funny. The last guy that went tried way too hard to make it funny. He started off with some lame cliché joke about how the bachelor party was crazy and that they'd never talk about it again. He actually paused and waited for laughter, and not a single person laughed out of over 150. Then his hands started shaking and he kept losing his place. I think he eventually gave up after about 2 minutes of torture and just said, "To the bride and groom." It was horrific. Was at a friend's brother's 21st and was standing around talking with some other guys. On the driveway, a bunch of girls were dancing to the music. It was a really chill night, but it was about to get a lot chillier. The guy next to me said to the guy on the other side, "How about the rack on that blonde chick?" The other guy replied, "That's my daughter." The first guy mumbled something and left at a brisk walk.
It can be worse, believe it or not. My significant other was helping his mom reminisce by looking at her old sports team photos from when she used to play hockey. Significant other and his mate both point and go,
"Whoa, who's that one?"
And of course, it was her. She was apparently really flattered by it, though.
I mean, Freudian complexities aside, it's just nice that the person gave their mum a nice esteem boost for a while. Probably a good thing that the friend was there to place the blame on. When I was in the 7th grade in Texas history class, we had an in-class assignment in groups of 3 that required us to read a passage from the textbook and then summarize it in a skit for the class. I was grouped with a good friend who we call Karen and a girl who was known for being really socially awkward, who we will call Janice. Janice was that type of socially awkward girl that tried really, really hard to be cool, but failed miserably while wearing a Naruto headband every single day. Our passage was about cattle herding, and for some reason Janice got it into her head that it would be hilarious to hum the Star Wars theme song, but instead of regular humming, moo it. She wanted to moo the Star Wars theme song at the end of the skit. She tried to convince us, but Karen and I did not want to get destroyed by our classmates, so we refused. When it was our turn, we completed our skit and started to head back down, and Janice looks at us and screams, "Please!" And we both just shook our heads. She burst into tears and explained to us that she wanted to do something cool for the performance, but we refused, so could she just please do it on her own? The teacher told her to go ahead. Janice, still sobbing, stood in front of the class and mooed the entire Star Wars theme song, but the tune was unrecognizable since she was sniffing and gasping in between moos. So we all just kind of sat there for a solid 5 minutes watching this girl in a Naruto headband bawl and moo. 2 stand out from one high school English class. A dude got called out by our teacher for plagiarizing while he gave a report in front of a class in a book we read. In particular, she asked what "in lay thinking" meant, and he stood there for a good 10 seconds of silence before she lectured everyone on not copying from other sources. Another kid in our grade died from taking too many substances. He was pretty popular and his death shocked the school for a good while. Several of his closest friends were in this class. The day after his death, our teacher was out sick and we had a substitute. Naturally, she called out this guy's name during roll call. That hushed the class to the point of searing awkwardness, and some guy started sobbing. You could still see the slow dawning horror on the sub's face. You managed to trigger a cringe that had been blocked by my mind since it happened in 1997. Holy crap. 7th grade, a kid 2 grades above us died in a car accident.
It really shook up the small town as he was a partying drunk and he and his friends went driving. Very much one of those can't happen to our town kinds of things. Cue roll call in social studies the day after the funeral. A kid in our grade shared a very common first name with the kid who died. Teacher says, "James?" Before James can even say here, frickin' Isaac yelled out trying to be funny, "How can he be here? He just died!" Absolute silence. I mean, what the frick do you say to that? And in case you haven't cringed into oblivion yet, this was the day that the dead kid's sister, who was in our grade, returned to school. She was going to take more than the week and a half to recuperate, but liked being around friends to help her get through it. My sister was on a first date with some guy she met online, and was nervous, so she had my significant other and I meet up with them. The guy was super braggy about being able to speak German, not knowing that my significant other was raised there and speaks it fluently. So my significant other tries to start a conversation with him in German. The guy apparently only spoke a few words of German and left embarrassed and without any chance of a second date. My significant other still feels a little guilty about it. Ich bin ein zwanghafter Lügner. Watching a friend be punished by their parents. It's so frickin' awkward. Oh my god, when I was 7 or 8 at a friend's house and he said crap while we played Mario Kart and his mum heard from the other room. She pulled him over her knee and started to give him a smacking on the rump. So I immediately tried to leave and the mum said, "Don't worry, he deserves this, you can stay." I was really weirded out and left anyways. As I closed the door behind me, my buddy was giving me a look that I'll never forget. I have a friend, Jake, who's partially deaf and he has hearing aids to help with that. We're cameramen and we were live streaming a college basketball game. We wear headsets to speak through the crowd and he has to take his hearing aids out to use it. He and I were taking a break during half-time and an old man who had a bag of candy, already weird, right, walked up to us and offered it to Jake. Jake, who still had his hearing aids out. Jake accepts this as the man giving us a bag of candy when in reality he just offered a piece to each of us. Yep, plenty weird. Jake just walked off with the candy bag, munching away as the old man helplessly tried to follow him through the crowd, yelling, No, I just meant to take one, Jesus Christ! I was uncomfortable in so many ways, I just walked away from the situation. Sounds like I need to get a fake hearing aid so I can just grab stuff and go. Actually, no, that would be morally condemnable. Tempting, though. I was on a train going between London and Manchester, UK, and went to use the bathroom. The toilet at the end of the carriage was disabled accessible, so it had a wide curved door that automatically opened at a steady and slow pace, about 20 to 30 seconds to completely uninterruptible retracting in a semicircle to allow wheelchair access to the carriage. If you've travelled on these trains before, you'll know that to close the door, you enter the stall, push a button to close the door, then when it's finished closing, you press another to lock it. Someone had not told this to the lady in the loo. Just as I arrive, another person coming from the other direction pushed the outside button to open the door, and it started its inevitable arc. For at least 30 excruciating seconds, the button pusher, myself, and eventually everyone sitting in the packed commuter carriage behind, who was facing in our direction, got to see the woman bend up from the seat, reach and hop to the other side of the cubicle, and desperately pummel the door, close, and lock buttons inside. Pants around the ankles the whole time, white bottom flashing. At a merciless pace, the door opened fully, contemplated its life, and then closed on the pitiful image within. The button pusher and I looked at each other, said nothing, and went back to our seats. I've seen this happen before. The poor guy got revealed like some crap prize on a game show. You'll never expect what's going to be behind door number 2. It's a guy going number 2. I'm usually the subject of first-hand embarrassment, but this time, a local radio station I listened to hosted some kind of Christmas charity event, where the DJS stood outside some kind of children's charity drive and talked about it to the people giving donations. They'd been playing music in between, asking people their names and talking about how much stuff they'd given, like, "Thanks to Dave from Cityville for the $300. Say hi, Dave." Dave, hi, you're welcome, happy holidays, bye. The cringe begins when a guy named Josh comes in to give some money to the charity. The DJ? Wow, Josh has given us $3,000, the most generous donation of the day. Josh. Yeah, haha, I did. So how much do you have now? DJ. Thanks again, Josh. I think that puts us at 10,000. Josh. No. I mean, after what I gave you, how much do I have? DJ. We have $10,000 in donations. Josh. No, I mean, what number did my donation put you over? At this point, I've gone from confusion to realizing what Josh is trying to get the DJ to say. I'm actually facepalming for him. DJ? Well, before you donated, we had about 8,000. Josh, no, that's not what I mean. DJ, I don't quite know what you're getting at, Josh. Josh, get it? Now you have over 9,000! DJ, what? Josh, get it? After what I gave you, you have over 9,000! DJ, yeah, I don't. Like, there's this show called Dragon Ball Z, and the guy in it, he says over 9,000. Oh, right, yeah. Alright then. Basically, a guy donated thousands in charity over the radio to just get the DJ to say, we have over 9,000. I'm pretty sure they didn't get the joke, and he tried to explain it to them. I don't remember a lot of the details or the exact amount, but I'm pretty sure the guy donated in the thousands. Government class senior year. Teacher makes a comment about how we should stay off our phones in class and be careful about the things we send out. Proceeds to pull up a classmate's tweet that says something along the lines of, "This teacher is so dumb, this class freaking sucks." She was on her phone, so she didn't see it pulled up immediately. When the whole class fell silent, she finally looked up and turned bright red. The teacher kind of chuckled and continued on with the lessons. To be fair, that teacher had amazing timing. I always get this when I watch guys hit on girls unsuccessfully. One particularly painful example was a good friend of mine who is not the best when it comes to flirting, and he'd just come out of a long-term relationship, so safe to say he was rusty. At any rate, he makes a beeline toward this girl. I try to intervene and assure him it will not work out. She was seeing someone, and her friend told me that my friend, currently making moves towards her, weirded her out a little. I pleaded and pleaded with him to just refrain from doing it, but he was having none of it, as he thought I just wanted to take a stab myself. Anyway, I watched helplessly as he moves towards her, slides up and attempts to hold her hand. She looks mildly scared, so he says to her in a fairly loud voice, "Don't worry, I'll hold you." At this point, I have to look the other way as I'm actually dying of embarrassment for him. She then slowly starts moving away, looking quite fearful, and then briskly walks outside. He comes back over and asks if he should go for her friend instead. Just remembered another story from the same guy around the same time. This time he had managed to pull, and he was cracking onto this girl and she was reciprocating, putting her hands on his leg, giving him the occasional kiss. Anyway, he gets incredibly smashed, and we're walking with a group of friends to another bar. The woman in question is walking behind us with her friend. He says incredibly loudly, "I am so in there, bro. 10 out of 10. Easy." She's obviously well within earshot. We arrive at the next bar, and she comes up to him and says, "Were you talking about me?" I've never seen someone look so on the spot. He stammers some answer about not meaning it like it sounded. At any rate, safe to say, this killed the vibe for a bit. She sort of distances herself from him. Undeterred, he continues to drink and attempts to start up conversations with her. Feeling a little bit freaked out, she asks her friends to leave. Now, they lived about 1 kilometer away from this bar. They all leave. My friend excuses himself about 10 minutes later. We all ask him not to go to this woman's house. He promises not to, and being drunk, we let him go. About 20 minutes later, I get a phone call from one of this girl's friends saying that my friend is drunk in their house, which was their parents' house, and is refusing to leave. Mortified, we had to go and collect him, sort of half-yelling apologies at their house. Oofed. I think we all know at least one guy like this. Generally, they grow out of it, and we're hopefully able to use these sorts of stories as cautionary and humorous tales for the rest of us. Used to be a bag boy at a grocery store. One day, I was bagging an older man's groceries, and the cashier begins to talk to him. In a polite voice, "Have you found everything you're looking for?" He gave no response. "Sir, have you found everything you're looking for?" No response. "Sir, have you found everything you're looking for?" The man, finally acknowledging the cashier, says, "Oh, hey, I'm deaf." The cashier apologized profusely, and the old man looked at her in disgust, while I did the brave thing and left to bring shopping carts back into the store. Sleeping over my friend's house in the 7th grade, I was trying to sleep on the floor. However, his parents decided to have very loud, wall-rattling fun times. I laid there trying to fall asleep for about 15 minutes when a loud shriek hinted that it was over. I kinda laughed a little, and my friend, who I thought was sleeping, just says, "I am so sorry." We awkwardly laughed about it, then went to bed. 3 women in a kitchen, one is pretty overweight and recently miscarried. I knew, the third person didn't, and started asking questions about how the pregnancy was coming along. I'm peeling carrots, just dying inside. The overweight woman who miscarried informed the woman that she lost the baby a month ago. I'm a coward and just pretended to focus on the carrots. Horrible. This was my freshman year of college in 2006. One of my Gen Ed class requirements was a minority studies class, and the only one left was women's studies. I figured it would be a perfectly okay class, and it honestly was. The problem was this guy in the class named Carter. Carter was the precursor to the modern-day "ladies, I must apologize for my gender, look at me, I'm such a good ally to women" guy, and every time he raised his hand, you could see a lot of people in the room cringe. He had said something dumb, and the professor had moved on to a new topic when he raised his hand again. He then said, "I just want to apologize for what my gender does to women." I feel like everyone in the class was staring a hole through their desks because of how utterly embarrassing this guy was. The professor said, Okay, if that's all you wanted to say, let's move on, and oh lord, does thinking about that still make me cringe. Oh boy, I've got one. An integral part of my architecture education were what we call critiques or juries. Basically, you'd present your work in front of a group of your classmates and professors, to which questions could be asked and suggestions be offered. It was an incredibly valuable part of our education, as getting and offering feedback really encouraged more critical thought about what we were doing. Unfortunately, it also meant that if you produced crappy work, you'd get torn to pieces. Anyway, come our final jury presentations for the semester, this one guy pins up his presentation materials and physical model and gives his presentation. It was bad. Seriously bad. Aside from only taking up a quarter of his allotted time, it looked like his presentation materials were half finished, after a night of fervent scrambling to get the work done. There wasn't enough to even start to ask questions or give suggestions to him. So everyone, trying to think of at least something productive to say, kept completely silent. It was probably only 15 seconds, but it was absolutely the most awkward silence of my life. Eventually, one of the professors spoke up and said something along the lines of, "If this is the kind of work you think is acceptable, you probably shouldn't look at continuing this program." To which the guy just replied, "Sorry," and walked out. He didn't show up the next year. So yeah, I've never felt as awkward even in situations where I'm the subject of the awkwardness. Probably not that bad in the grand scheme of things, but it's been going on for months now. My friend will just blurt out guesses to questions in my physical chemistry class. She sits in the front row, and before anyone has a chance to answer if they actually know, she will just randomly guess. Over and over again. It's so awkward because she's almost always wrong, and the teacher asks her to explain, and she doesn't ever have a good reason for what she said. Watching pallbearers lose control of the coffin they were carrying down a steep set of granite church steps after the funeral was over. An ice or sleet storm took place during the funeral service, so the steps were slick. Several pallbearers went down as the coffin landed on the granite steps and slid the rest of the way down to the sidewalk below. Fortunately, the lid didn't open, but we all felt badly for them as the look on their faces showed they were mortified. What's the most cringeworthy way someone has tried to show you they were quirky? I had a coworker in a retail environment who was always going on to us about how special he was and how he saw the world differently than the rest of us slobs because he was a writer. Customer with lazy eye comes up to the register. Coworker to customer, "Hey, I see you've got a lazy eye. I notice things like that because I'm a writer." Super awkward checkout ensued. "I notice things like that because I'm a writer." I couldn't help but read that in Ralph Wiggum's voice. My uncles are both published writers. One of them is the most humble guy you could ever meet. The other is so fricking egotistical. I mean, he's clever and very smart, but he makes everything about himself. He can't stand to be wrong. He practically had a fit when my 15-year-old brother beat him in a pull-up contest. And he's like in his late 50s. He doesn't wear glasses despite really needing them because he doesn't want to look old. Regularly almost crashes and puts his children at real risk because of his vanity. I knew a girl in high school who used to diagnose herself with mental illness based on, to the best of my knowledge, Year 11 psychology class and online quizzes. She would also try to one-up anyone who had a legitimate, medically diagnosed mental illness, despite having, in her words, major depression, anxiety, OCD, bulimia, Munchausen's, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and antisocial personality disorder. She refused point-blank to ever see a doctor and have any one of these diagnoses confirmed or treated. If you're going to fake mental illness, you might as well do something unique like Morgellons, narcolepsy, Alice in Wonderland syndrome, or if you were really committed, trichotillomania. Lame. I knew a girl who fakes sneezes when she walks outside. She found out only 25% of people sneeze when they see bright sunlight, so she wanted to be part of a minority. I have no idea why she does this. But her fake sneeze is this loud, rough, manly-sounding thing. It's comical how different it is to her real sneeze. Wait, sun sneezes are a minority? I had no idea. It's a genetic quirk. I didn't realize it was weird growing up because my entire family did it, except my mom. I was confused when I found out other kids don't have to sneeze when it was sunny outside. We had a girl that would have an uncontrollably loud hiccup at the most inappropriate times. Moment of silence during the Memorial Day thing, concerts, you name it. Anytime there was silence, she just had to get everyone to look at her. My hiccups end with a burp and I hate them. A subteacher in 3rd grade really ripped on me for them. I mean, this just sounds like the oral version of what my butt seems to want to do at the most inopportune and public moments. So the inappropriate hiccups has my sympathy. A guy I went to high school with was convinced he was a vampire, and once he actually bit my friend during class because he couldn't help himself. A person bit me once, at a party. It was unexpected. I just reflexively hit her in the face while her teeth were still on me. Maybe I tried to push her off me, maybe I tried to hit her so she let go. I'm honestly not sure, but I do know I didn't think about it first. She got a bloody nose. I had bite marks on my shoulder. She said, "What the frick?" I said, "What the frick to you? What are you doing?" She said, "You frickin' hit me. What's the matter with you?" I said, "Me? You fricking bit me. The frick is the matter with you?" She said it was cute when she does stuff like that and that I was some kind of woman-hitting psycho. I was asked to leave the party and most definitely did. 15 years later, still one of the strangest experiences of my life. She brought a fricking ukulele everywhere. At first you'd think, wow, a cute girl with a ukulele, I bet she's really cool, but you'd be falling into her trap. She barely knew 2 chords and was a complete moron. I knew a lady like this where in high school people would be like, "Sweet, can you play me a song?" causing her to snap, "No," at them and have people just be confused. I had a hipster neighbor who would strum his ukulele and smoke his pipe outside while his kids rode bikes. Oh, that's so wholesome. Just a dude chilling while looking out for his kids. This girl I know constantly talks up how much she loves nerdy things like no other girl is into. Nerdy things like Game of Thrones, Star Wars, and Lord of the Rings. Yep, very unpopular entertainment no other girl is into. Her name was Trinity. She said she had multiple personalities, 3 to be exact. She was lying. I asked her parents, they had no clue what I was talking about. He'd wear a paper Krispy Kreme sailor hat every day. I saw bullies rip his hat to shreds and he'd just reach into his roller backpack and pull out another one. Never saw him without it. What a frickin' power move, though. The fact that he pulled one out of his backpack is big wang energy. The fact that his backpack rolled is even bigger wang energy. Friend of mine went through a super proud to be Italian phase about the time Sopranos aired. He refused to eat his mum's cooking one night because it was too Irish. There were many other things he'd do to try and convey a mob connection. He was part Irish and eventually became a cop. What kind of Italian refuses his mama's cooking? What kind of Italian survives refusing his mama's cooking? A non-Italian. This one guy would put blue Powerade in a Windex bottle and spend the day taking it out of his backpack and squirting it in his mouth. High school. There were plenty of other things, but this one stands out. Isn't that a scene from Scrubs? I kind of remember the janitor doing that to freak out JD in one episode. Had a class with a guy that wanted people to think he was a nerd. I guess to him, nerds wear large glasses. Only problem was he didn't need glasses. He started showing up to class wearing 3D glasses from the movie theater with the lenses popped out. My first thought was, why would someone wear cardstock paper glasses with the red and blue cellophane ripped out? It took me reading your comment to realize or remember that's not what they give out anymore. This guy in my high school would wear cat ears and carry a stuffed bunny around. I think he was trying to look like an anime character or something. Anyway, the most cringeworthy part, he would constantly meow in class. Not like, meow, but more like, yeah, like an anime cat or whatever. My oldest kid is on the spectrum, and I've had to monitor and restrict his interest in anime because when he watched too much of it, he would start having inappropriate and stylized reactions that were super off-putting. Like in anime, apparently when a girl they like approaches, they sometimes do a freeze frame type of the character freaking out that has their arms and legs all stretched out in midair, making a horrible noise. Now, picture a 13-year-old leaping up and hollering in Dollarama because a pretty girl came into the aisle. Sorry, kiddo, humans don't actually do that. You're cut off again.
You should let him binge Arrested Development and see what he comes up with. Yes, let him learn from Tobias, Buster, and George Michael Maharis how to behave around women.
Look, if I can watch a real kid who is any one of those 3 characters from Arrested Development, my life will be that bit better. And it can't be that different to my friends and I just constantly quoting it to each other all the time. Advise an anime club in my high school, and I fricking hate these kids. I got a call from the front office one day. I was told to get my butt down there and stop whatever was going on in front of the office. I run over there and see one of the girls, ears and tail on, is crawling around on the ground rubbing on people's legs. I told her to get up and she hissed at me. I literally had to write her up for hissing at me. Same group made up their own Naruto village. Many asked what I did to deserve this. When it began 11 years ago, it was a group of kids who needed a place to be. They had a hard time making friends and getting a hold of anime was hard. I started it to give them a place to belong and hopefully teach them about the line between fan and obnoxious. Hundreds of kids have passed through it and had a better time in high school for it. Then there are those who don't want friendship, they just want attention, at any price.
I love how this happened and the solution was, I don't know, call whoever advises the anime club. They'll know what to do.
Damn it, we've got cat girls in the lobby. Call the weeb wrangler. Imagine birthing a kid and raising it for 15 years for it to amount to that.
Teenagers are inherently dumb and weird. What's worse is that there was a guy that came into the nightclub I worked in with a trench coat, cat ear headband, tail, and cat eye or red contact lenses. At 25 plus years old, it's time to outgrow that phrase. I'm all for self-expression, but there's a line between it and ostracizing yourself from society.
The receptionist at the sign-in desk I do my clinical for school at is normal while back at work, but once she gets home, she literally changes into her goth style. I mean the super pale foundation, black lipstick, crazy eyeliner and eyebrows, piercings, she still wears trip pants occasionally, crazy tutus, black fingerless gloves, and she has a freaking pet crow named Malice and 3 black cats. She's into witch or Wiccan crystals, and she believes that they have healing powers, if that makes sense. And she takes her acceptable for work wig off and rocks a purple faux hawk, her actual hair. I didn't believe her until she showed me pictures. I thought she was hazing me because I was the new kid. I was bewildered. That's how you be your weird self without shame and without letting it ruin your social or professional life. The kind of people who proudly say they are a butthole. It annoys me so much. A girl I used to hang out occasionally liked to pretend she was some kind of bad biker B-word. She talked about riding every chance she got. She showed people pictures and dressed the part. I'd always hit her up when I was going riding to see if she wanted to come along. It gets old being the only woman around. She'd always have an excuse and claimed not to ride if it had rained that week and so on and so forth. Would always give me heck about getting a real bike. I ride a CRB 1000RR and she had an 883 Sportster. She was once complaining to me that she only got her baby out 3 times that year. Which, you base your entire identity on something you do 3 times a year?
Ah, gotcha. One of those Harley people. There's 2 types of Harley owners. The ones that are like, hell yeah, motorcycles, and the ones that are like,
Harleys are the only motorcycle. Saw this kid in a class who would always try to walk like Captain Jack Sparrow. Anybody who wears those fricking
normal people scare me
shirts. Jeez.
Normal people scare me, people scare me.
About 10 years ago, around 2009 or 2010 or so,
I'm into some pretty underground, obscure music.
Oh really? That's cool. What kind of bands?
Korn, Avenged, Sevenfold, Metallica. What? I'm convinced some teenagers go out of their way to feel persecuted so they can find an identity to call their own. Because good gosh, that's almost as funny as the one girl who seriously, unironically claimed that the Offspring and Green Day red jumpsuit apparatus were hardcore punk.
More so annoying than cringeworthy, but people who pretend to have a mental illness because they think it makes them unique.
Those Funko Pops and not being perfectly lined up triggers my OCD so hard. Nope, you like things to be orderly, totally normal. Having to check the light switch 20 times to the level that you end up being late for things, that's more what OCD is.
Yeah, I never really knew what OCD was really until someone told me about it. He said he always has to hit the ground twice when he picks up something he dropped and pick up a pen 3 times on crap. Sucks. Oh crap, probably everything I did in high school. I've just repressed the whole 4 years.
Same. I embarrassingly strove to be a manic pixie dream girl. Ugh.
If you can't look back on the things you did when you were younger and cringe, then you haven't matured. Had a girl in my high school who legitimately believed she was an anime girl and was just born in the wrong body. She would listen to these subliminal "become an anime girl" YouTube videos, end everyone's name in san, wore a schoolgirl outfit every day, I went to a public school, and would sometimes say random Japanese words or phrases because her brain wasn't fully accumulated to America. Needless to say, she was a fully white girl from the Midwest. I love these because the people who act like this have absolutely no idea how Japan really is. Anyone else noticing the overrepresentation of anime kids in this topic? Apparently it's a way of making yourself very memorable, to say the least. Actually, all the ones I knew in school were fine. I thought I was hot stuff because I didn't like reading. I kinda regret that now. My daughter, a bright, wonderful, hilarious mum of 2 and wife, has the best friend that goes around bragging to people how she never reads anything more challenging than a copy of US Magazine. She finds it the hairdresser. The friend is 42, and frankly, we're less than thrilled they've been friends for 20 plus years. Before I get judgy comments, there is a ton of other crap I'm leaving out. She's any parent's basic definition of a bad influence. The no reading thing would be 50% easier to swallow if the friend didn't insist on injecting her opinion on a wide variety of world affairs, politics, entertainment, etc. To paint a picture, I'm 100% not making this up. Her life's ambition is to become a for real housewife. She'll marry anyone and move anywhere to get on reality TV. She actually went to Miami from Northern California on vacation to specifically go to a club that was depicted in the Real Wives of Miami Beach episode just to go to that club, and was turned away at the door, and had the unmitigated gall to do the "Do you know who I am?" at the doorman. I'm acquainted with someone who will pack her cat in a carrier, drive to the local university, no small feat considering the parking situation and 40,000 students, and push the cat around the quad in an antique baby carriage. All the while she'll make exasperated social media posts about how rude people are to stare at her or talk to her. As far as I know, she doesn't walk the cat around her own quiet residential area. A little unrelated, but there was this old guy that would walk his dog around on campus last year. Big loping golden retriever that was so friendly and sweet. The dog's owner was also really kind. I got to talking to him one day, and he revealed he likes walking on campus because the kids there tend to miss their own dogs back at home, and he likes causing a little happiness in his daily routine. Switched schools this year, so I haven't seen them. I miss you, Bella. People that repost those cringy, "I'm not a B-word, I'm just honest, wink," posts multiple times a day to Facebook while reaffirming the post in the text comment above, saying how much the post is, "Yep, oh, it's so me." Cringe. My eyes change color in the sunlight. Also, my eyes change color with the seasons. Wow, who knew different types of lighting based on the weather could affect what color things are seen as? I hate to be mean, but there was this girl in a couple of my classes in college who told the professors that she wanted to be called Oracle instead of her real name. You could see the cringe in the professor's eyes and feel the awkward tension all over. About once every quarter, this happens to me. I'm not like everybody else. Followed directly by being exactly like everyone else. It's 2005 Hot Topic all over again. I adopted an RP accent in high school. I already had a bit of a posh voice from going to elocution lessons, but I went full 19th century British aristocrat sometimes. I went to school in regional Australia too. Also, I bought a pocket watch to look posh. I do actually like pocket watches, but I knew why I did it. Girls who say they only hang out with boys because it's less drama. Read, "No one puts up with my crap anymore and I don't play well with others." The scene. German class. The teacher was someone who escaped the DDR, East Germany, when she was young. The actor, an obese guy with a neckbeard, skinny jeans, and pink shoes who said, "Oh, you're from East Germany? I'm a communist too." I'm so glad he dropped the class. The dysfunctional veteran gear. I hate that crap so much, typically worn by a guy that maybe got through basic before they were separated or kicked out for underage drinking. I'll see guys in my classes wearing it, always talking about crap that has nothing to do with the class I'm taking. Meanwhile, I'm just thinking, I get it, dude, now shut the frick up and let the professor get back to the lesson plan. I know someone that is a habitual funeral goer. Anytime someone remotely affiliated with them passes, especially in the town we live in, they are all over social media proclaiming how devastated they are and how close they were to the person. More annoying is repeating the same story over and over about their one interaction with them, or whatever. Like tries to get super close with the family at the time and then trails off after the hype from the death is over. People who wear cute but psycho shirts. At least it's one way to know who to avoid, I guess. I was talking to a classmate on the bus and she hauled out her sketchbook to show me her original character, which was a bear that vomits corpses. She related all of this to me in a very loud and carrying voice. Tim, who in 2007 dressed like he was hosting a Nickelodeon game show in 1994, was always around. He thought it was shtick, but he would flip your words around on you. The Yankees are your team, huh? What do you, own the Yankees? Did not stop. Finally, someone asked if he was 7 years old and knew how to talk like an adult. Tim then disappeared faster than Drax at the end of Infinity War. 12 years, and I haven't seen him since. Bumper stickers. Lots and lots of bumper stickers. If I see more than 2 to 3 on a car, like, okay, you support a political candidate and love your Doberman, cool, I just assume the person driving it is insufferable. If they're that insistent on sharing their opinions in public to strangers, imagine how they are privately. I once saw a car with so many bumper stickers it covered the entire trunk and back window. Not sure how that's not illegal, but either way, I was embarrassed for them. I went to college with a girl whose car, front, hood, sides, roof and back were all bumper stickers. There were so many you almost couldn't tell the car was silver. There were like 13 different versions of this coexist sticker, then a ton for Planned Parenthood, lots of anti-Trump stuff, lots of Black Lives Matter stickers, Pride stickers, etc. Which, hey, cool if you support or don't support stuff. But fricking hell, she was the worst. Just at everything. She was insufferable. If you didn't agree with every single thing she did or said, it was a personal attack on her, and she had to tell everyone you were a right-wing extremist, or a stalker, or a misogynist, etc. She mooched homework answers from everyone, and if you wouldn't help her, suddenly you victimized her somehow. She couldn't hold a single conversation without making it political or announcing she was a vegan, or she hated X, Y, or Z. She was the most annoying person I've ever met. Sometimes I see that car in town and I just cringe. I knew a girl who wanted to be a manic pixie dream girl type. After some exposure to her, I realized that meant she was flaky, had erratic behavior, and displayed some traits that implied she was mentally ill. I'm so happy she's out of my life. When people say they only listen to The Greatest Showman, or that the only type of music they like is The Greatest Showman. 1, that's not something to brag about, and 2, that doesn't make you special. A lot of people like that movie. Everyone who has now started using One Life to Live or this, #OL2L, as their new YOLO life motto. Divorced your husband? OL2L. Fricked the hot Brazilian dude at work who's engaged? OL2L. Going to take a crap? OL2L. Put a pic of the coffee you're drinking in a very hipster area on Instagram? #OL2L. Don't use a hashtag or weird life motto to be a different kind of butthole. You'll always be a butthole. My ex was a one-upper and always had to play the devil's advocate or bring attention to himself. He was a self-proclaimed anarchist. He carried several knives on him and only drank coffee. Claimed smoking helped his ADHD. Invalidated everything I said when I just needed to vent about something. Always making fun of people, rudely in public, and yelled at me for being embarrassed. Refused to get a job because he didn't want to work for the man. Was absolutely convinced the FBI would break into our house and haul us off to camps. What he won't tell you, I worked in a crappy retail job to pay for our rent. I did the grocery shopping and cooking, he used food stamps, and he used all of his school money on bug-out bag gear. Oh, and the real reason he didn't drive was because his license was suspended. Not because he didn't want to drive. 24-year-old me was a fricking idiot. What's the worst experience you've had with a toilet? Not me, but a friend of mine. A group of us all decided to go on a camping trip with our respective significant others. His girlfriend tells him she will not go unless they have a toilet, so he goes out and buys a portable, chemical toilet. He also buys a new tent for them to use and retire the old tent to be the bathroom. He sets the toilet up in town on the valley floor, fills up the fill tank with the blue chemical fluid. He tests it to make sure it works properly. The operation is simple. You pull a lever which opens a flap in the bottom of the toilet. The evidence is dropped through the flap, and a second valve drops fluid down the sides of the toilet into the open flap. flushing all remaining evidence into the lower tank. The flap then returns to its original position, creating a nice, airtight seal, preventing the contents of lower tank from disturbing your precious sensibilities. We drove all the way up to the top of the mountain and set up camp. We have a fun day of eating camp food, drinking beer, and having fun. It's now probably close to midnight and pitch black. My friend is the first one to need to use the new bathroom with the new 20th century chemical toilet. He excuses himself and proceeds to thoroughly test the storage capacity of the upper bowl. He pushes the lever to open the flap to the lower sealed tank, and immediately he gets a lesson on air pressure displacement, as the 7,000 or so feet higher elevation has resulted in a much higher pressure inside the waste tank than the air outside. There also appears to be a slurry of liquid and solid waste between escaping air and victim. What we hear around the campfire is a loud thwomp, followed by the friends screaming, "Oh God! Oh God! Oh crap! No!" Of course, being the good friends we are, we rush to his aid with him yelling, "Don't come in here! Don't come in here!" Many wet naps were used that night, a midnight creek river bath, and years of teasing came from that night. That was the last camping trip for that tent. It was retired. The toilet, however, still is used, but the reason for the little screw valve on the side was learned by all. In conclusion, pressure difference in camping toilet became crap fountain. I wonder if, on deliberation, his partner would have just preferred crapping in the woods like the other campers do. I've never used one of these devices, and now I'm not sure I ever would. Was at Target one day, shopping for groceries and whatnot. I then got that feeling, you know, when you've got to take a dump. I rushed to the nearest bathroom and unleashed the beast. Mind you, this Target only had one bathroom, and it was a bathroom where only one person could be there at a time. I thought it would be a quick crap, but it turned out I was wrong, and it would not stop coming out. This goes on for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then I hear knocking on the door. It was a lady that said, "My son really has to use the bathroom. Would you please hurry up?" I couldn't really respond to her because of all the pain I was feeling, so I basically moaned and grunted at her. After about 3 minutes, I hear a kid screaming, "Mommy!" and I could probably tell it was the mother's son. Hearing this, I knew I needed to hurry up, so I forced myself to squeeze out the extremities faster. As soon as it's done, I whip fast as possible. The worst part is that when I tried to flush the toilet, it clogged. So about 3/4 of the toilet bowl is filled with crap, pee, and toilet paper. Scared, I wash my hands and make a run for the door, then to my car. When I exit the bathroom, I notice a little boy crying and his mum saying things like, "Frick, damn, crap," etc. Turns out the kid crapped himself because I was taking such a long time. It was awkward when I was walking back to my car, since the woman's car was right next to mine and she was carrying him to the car so the kid could go home and change. In conclusion, made a kid crap himself after taking a humongous crap myself. Here you go, my worst toilet experience. I have issues. I'm painfully shy, very nervous of things a lot of the time, and I get highly anxious about some things, particularly going to the loo. I find it really awkward to go to the bathroom in an unfamiliar house, even more so with unfamiliar people. When I was at university, I was the only girl living in a house with a group of boys. I was quite nervous about crapping. I mean, males tend to have a kind of idea of females that they don't do crap or something, and that they think that when they do, it's pink and pebble-like. Anyhow, one evening I went to the toilet, didn't put the light on, and the pull cord for the light was outside the bathroom. So I made the decision on my way that I wouldn't use the light. It was early evening in autumn, so it was light-ish. I could see, but it was dim and shadowy. I only had to pee, so it wasn't a huge problem. Only it was a problem because then I ended up pooing. I was supposed to be going food shopping with one of my housemates, and here I was pooing. I was getting a little anxious that he was waiting downstairs, and the time I was taking would be a firm indicator that I was more than peeing. I quickly finished up and was about to leave the bathroom when I thought to myself that I should maybe double-check the toilet was clean before I left. Having no light meant it was very hard to see if there were any stains. I used my phone to light up the toilet and saw the biggest poo ever. Seriously, it was taking up half the toilet and was wedged into the U-bend. I panicked. I flushed, but it didn't move. Didn't budge. Now I was getting really flustered. Downstairs, housemates would have definitely heard a double flush. It still hadn't gone. I couldn't risk a third flush. A third flush would be far more humiliating than dealing with it using an alternate method. At least I thought so. Not sure how I convinced myself of that, but in blind panic and toilet embarrassment, I did. I convinced myself that I had no other option but to lift it out. I did not tell myself to wrap my hand in toilet paper. In went the hand. I got a firm grip on the log and Sue learned that there is no gripping a poo. It can't be done. It began to disintegrate in my hand. But I managed to sort of flip it into the sink where it landed in 2 chunks with a wet thud slap and left opaque brown stains all over the sink. Here I will add that I definitely should have just broken it up and flushed it, but I was panicking so bad. I could feel my heart pumping and I was sweating and my breathing was stalling. My whole body was shaking and felt like jelly. It was like a negative adrenaline. So what do you do when you have a sink covered in crap stains and 2 huge chunks of crap sat there waiting to be disposed of? You mash it down the sink. You run the tap until the water is scalding hot and you proceed to mash the poo into the plug hole as it disintegrates. Only it blocks the plug hole. Now the sink is filling up, and you have a crap plug in the bottom of the sink of burning water, and you have to unblock it. So you shove your hand in, burning yourself while you're trying like crazy to scoop the crap out of the little plug holes. All the while, you hear your housemate shouting up the stairs, "Hey, Susie, are you okay? Are you ready to go?" Oh crap. Literally. Suddenly, the panic reaches a new level. The housemate is coming up the stairs, the door to your crap sauna is at the top of those very stairs, and you know that the steam in this room is the most foul-smelling steam that could ever be, and soon it will have leaked under the door to the top of the stairs he's walking up. You grab bleach, soap, shampoo, shower gel, and start squirting it under the hot tap, trying like hell to make normal-smelling steam. I'm in the shower. I thought I'd need a shower. It might save time. What the frick was that excuse? Anyhow, the steam is now pooey and perfumed and sickening. The poo is almost mashed away, but the last few bits are not leaving. If you've never manhandled crap, it has a texture like no other. It feels a bit like when you start kneading bread just after adding the warm water and it's warm and sticky. Maybe it's seeded bread. There's definitely a slight coarseness to crap. Mainly, it's the stickiness that is a hassle. And the smell. Obviously, it sticks like melted chocolate and dough combined into a sticky, thick nightmare. You force the last few nuggets down the sink and start trying to wash your hands. The smell will not leave. Will not budge. After 10 minutes of scrubbing and soaping and crying and sitting because your legs will no longer support you, you decide to do the walk of shame. Exit the bathroom, tell your housemate that you were sick in the shower and it took some cleaning up. Remember suddenly, thanks to Beethoven, that tomato juice gets rid of skunk smell and wonder if it will get rid of poo smell. Set off to the supermarket in new hope of getting rid of the smell. The biggest "oh crap" came in the toilet roll aisle when my housemate says, "Oh, this reminds me, I did the biggest crap ever earlier. It wouldn't flush, I just had to leave it." It wasn't even my own crap. I'd known this guy for 3 weeks and had already gotten up to my elbows in his crap, all because it felt weird pooing in an unfamiliar environment. That flatmate's gonna try and take a dump at least 3 times before he leaves the house from now on. Yep, this incident will scar her for life. He will constantly go to the bathroom before he does anything, really. Holy crap, I must have been that kid. I thought this would be a funny topic to do, and it very much is. However, it's also making me pause to gag intermittently. So a mixed bag in summary. A mixed bag of poo, pee, and my spew. Here's another one. I was pooping in a train toilet. I thought it was locked. My country's train toilets use electronical locks. You push a button and it's supposed to be locked. But it wasn't. Some young good-looking lady walked right in. I was confused and didn't know what to say. 1, because I was crapping, and 2, because she was a fine-looking woman. So what came from my mouth joyfully was, "Tickets, please," and then the door closed automatically. I have Hirschsprung's disease, which basically means I was born without the muscles that move poop through the intestines. Basically, when I have to poop, there's no holding it in for a while. I have maybe 5 minutes before I crap myself. So I have many, many poop stories. My favorite happened when I was about 10. I went over to a friend's house, whose mother was a teacher at the school we went to, for the night. Since she's a girl and I'm a boy, we couldn't sleep in the same room, so I had to sleep in her older brother's room, who was about 16. Right before it was time for bed, my friend's mum said not to use the bathroom in the brother's room. I definitely didn't hear this, probably because we were playing Legos or something. Anyway, about 2 a.m. I feel the need and rush to the closest bathroom, her brother's bathroom. I left the beefiest, runny crap I have ever crapped in that poor, poor toilet. There's 3 funny parts to this story. First, there was no water in the bowl. Crap, there was no water in the whole bathroom. Second, everyone knew not to use that bathroom, the door was always shut, so the smell slipped under the nasal radar for like 3 days and the contents of the bowl hardened into poop steel. Lastly, her mum asked me at school if I knew anything about them needing to replace a certain toilet in a certain forbidden bathroom. That's amazing. I worked in a display suite for new apartments. The toilets were always dry. One Saturday morning, we opened up the display to the most foul stench I've ever smelled. It was the middle of summer, and the display suite was all glass with a tin roof so it heated up like a sauna. Trying to find the source of the smell, we realized that someone had crapped in the display toilet last weekend, despite there being no toilet paper or water in the toilet, and being too embarrassed or inconsiderate to tell anybody. So for a week in the middle of Australian summer, this turd sat there festering. It was rancid. The worst part was, because it was in a working environment, it was a biohazard. The company I worked for was too cheap to professionally deal with the issue, so the cleaners tried to vacuum it out, blowing hot poo air out the back of the vacuum, only making the smell worse. It took weeks to get out, and now we seal the toilets shut. Typically, I won't drop a deuce anywhere but my own house, but one time I was at my new girlfriend's house and the situation was dire. I was getting sweaty fighting it. My stomach was making the sound that there were radioactive gases brewing, and I knew I didn't have time to get all the way home. So instead, thinking that I have the bowels of a normal person, I went to the bathroom and destroyed that toilet. Even with the fan on, I'm positive she heard it as if I recorded it for her on my phone. Finally, it was over. I flush and it clogs. I spent a total of 45 minutes in there between the act and the post-war toilet maintenance, and lost any smooth points I had with her for the next several months. In conclusion, pooped in my girlfriend's house and went from knight in shining armor to the poopsmith in 45 minutes. So, what happened with you guys? I reckon it all went down the toilet from there. One time when I was little, I wanted to know what it would be like to be blind, so I blindfolded myself. When it was time to pee, I couldn't see the toilet and accidentally peed on the lid and started crying. Not sure if it was my worst or my best. I was peeing when a big sneeze hit me, which made me fart, which for some reason was followed immediately by a burp, which made me snort in laughter, which gave me the hiccups. You deserve an award for that. Is that what number 3 is? Burp snort. I once farted at the exact same time someone texted me. My phone was in my front pocket and set to vibrate. For a split second, I thought I'd farted so hard it was coming out front and back. I was walking into a stall in a subway, as in the underground transportation system, when I slipped in a puddle of pee and stuck my right arm into a pile of unflushed crap in the toilet in front of me, soaking my knees in pee, covering my hand above the wrist in the worst case of the runs I've ever seen, and badly spraining a couple of fingers when they caught on the edge of the toilet when I was catching myself. Then I spewed. I was at my girlfriend's house for the second time and things were still rather tense. I got a terrible stomachache during dinner and had to use the bathroom immediately. The layout of their house was in a way that the bathroom was next to the dining room. Not wanting to make much embarrassing noise, I wisely created a nest of toilet paper on the ground to later transfer the poo into the toilet. Squatting down, I began crapping, lost my balance, fell, hit my head on the counter and fell unconscious. I was found in a mess of crap when I came to. I feel like this is an unfinished story. What happened when you came to? Not only will this technique prevent splashback, but it will muffle the sound. For our viewers' convenience, the narrator has followed the link provided by that previous commenter. The technique is apparently laying a single piece of toilet paper on the surface of the water, which does wonders for preventing splash and, by extension, UTIs. Academic hall bathroom, senior year of college. Went to take a crap during class. Did not look at the roll beforehand. Go to wipe, no paper. By myself in the bathroom, so I do that sort of haven't wiped my butt crab walk to check out the other stall. No toilet paper in there either. Go to the paper towel dispenser. No paper. Ended up using a handful of gum wrappers I had in my pocket to get enough to walk downstairs to the other bathroom and finish the job. I still have nightmares. Okay, so when I was in the first grade, I went to this hardcore Christian school in Florida, USA. So one day, my class went on a field trip to the library or something along those lines. I just remember them leaving the classroom for about half an hour or so. Anyway, I wasn't allowed to come because the week before I had tied my shoes together in the library, so I got kicked out. So here I am, first grader, alone in the classroom when I feel grumbly in my tumbly. I figure that I have to wait until my teacher gets back before I'm allowed to go to the bathroom, so I patiently wait as the poop pains get more and more intense. Eventually, I'm in the corner curled into a ball squeezing my butt cheeks with the force of 1,000 gods. I hear my teacher from down the hall, and as I jump into the air with relief, I crap myself. I straight up crap myself as my entire class enters the classroom. So then, first grader me tries to play it off like nothing's going on, and I sit in my seat and proceed to learn. I'm an idiot. I'd freaking crapped myself. The teacher pulls me out and tells me that the entire class can smell my crap-filled drawers and sends me to the nurse's office while I'm forced to sit on a toilet until my parents can come. I ended up sitting on that toilet with crap covering my legs and crying for about 2 hours. When my parents finally arrived, I had hives covering my legs from that god-forsaken toilet. In conclusion, crapped myself in the first grade, had to sit on the toilet for 2+ hours with crap covering legs, and breaking out in hives. In an Indian restaurant, I went for a pee, and while I was sitting there, I noticed that a few of the tiles were blown, as in they'd come away from the wall. So in my slightly drunken state, I thought, I'll give them a prod. So I did. At that point, a vast quantity of tiles fell off the wall, causing a very loud crash. Everyone in the restaurant heard it. I had to walk back to my table with everyone, including the servers, looking at me. I never went back. When I was in high school, somebody in my family forgot to flush after going number 2. At some point, my dog discovered this and proceeded to treat herself to a snack. I went upstairs after I caught a hint of a very foul smell to find the contents of the toilet dragged across the hallway carpet. My mum and I spent the rest of the night cleaning it. The worst part was how sick my dog got. She spent the next few days vomiting up foamy, brown spew that reeked like you wouldn't believe. Mine would probably be having a violent period the morning after a night out whilst staying with my then-girlfriend in her dorm room, conducted in her ensuite bathroom with little to no sound insulation. I'd snuck out of bed around 6 a.m., praying to every available deity to leave her peacefully sleeping while I experienced my furious bowel vacation. Regrettably, this was not to be. As soon as I sat on the unfortunate porcelain throne, I unleashed a torrent of gas and liquid not usually experienced outside of volcanic eruptions. This was the pyroclastic flow of crapping. The noise was inescapable, and any attempt to control it just resulted in greater volume, except furnished with an embarrassingly puckered nuance. After the storm, I carefully opened the door, once again silently praying that my girlfriend would be clearly asleep, blissfully oblivious to the tarnation I'd just inflicted to her bathroom. Instead, I saw her shaking with laughter under the covers. Possibly not the worst experience one can have with a toilet, as Elvis would no doubt attest, but it was extremely embarrassing. I was on holiday in Florida with my girlfriend, now ex, and her family. Went to the toilet in the hotel room when we got there. Crap was too big to go down the crappy American toilet. Blocked and then proceeded to overflow after I attempted a double flush. Janitor was called, and the look he gave me when he left the bathroom was akin to a Vietnam flashback. In addition to this, the water leaked downstairs into the lobby. In conclusion, took a crap, blocked a toilet, traumatized a janitor, and flooded the lobby. American toilet? In case you didn't realize, Americans are done with taking Europe's crap. One of my good friends earned the nickname Iceberg by doing just this. Be proud of that crap. Clogging someone else's toilet is almost a rite of passage. It's like being a dog who pees on a fire hydrant to claim their territory. It's your toilet, your grounds now. The best part? You clog up the toilet, they fix it for you. First step in dominating your friends and becoming the alpha. When I was about 8, I accidentally zipped the outer skin of my pee-pee up in my zipper. My mum had to come and unzip me, which was not awesome. Things got pretty mangled up, so we're driving to the hospital, and my mum is yelling at my dad, "I told you we should have circumcised him." My dad is yelling at me for being such an idiot, and I'm just bawling my eyes out in the back seat. Good times. Ended up having to get circumcised because the doctor was worried that it would heal up with scar tissue that would cause problems down the line. On the plus side, I got a week off school. At my then-girlfriend's house, and I've got to pee. Excuse myself to take a leak, and I find myself fighting 2 streams. My pee hole was semi-blocked from my self-pleasure activities conducted a few hours previous. Is there a name for this? Typically, the blockage is only temporary, but on this occasion the 2-streamed dragon did not waver. One stream hit the water as the second sprayed the seat, wall, and floor. In hindsight, I should have remedied the trouble by simply squatting lower. In my panic, I used the only available tool I had, my hand, to bank stream 2 back into the bowl. I spent the next 10 minutes cleaning a good amount of pee off the floor and walls. Definitely the time I got locked inside a bathroom stall in the middle of Moscow. I closed and locked the stall door behind me and commenced my business. A lot of vodka the night before was doing a number on me, and I thought about my girlfriend sitting outside wondering what was going on. A few minutes passed, and when I tried to exit, I immediately saw the latch was broken. Completely broken. It wouldn't engage at all. That's when I noticed the claw marks around it. It was half broken and there were pry marks too. Clearly, I was not this toilet's first victim. I panicked and started banging really hard. This was one of those stalls that goes all the way to the floor, so I wasn't crawling out. After a few minutes, I was wedging myself against the back wall and trying to kick it out. I was in full-blown panic mode now. Stuck in a foreign country, I speak a little Russian, but my teacher never taught me, "Help me, I'm stuck in the toilet." The Russian word for help is all I could muster up. After 10 minutes, I began to lose hope. This was deep inside the mall and there was no cell signal on my mobile, so I couldn't even embarrassingly text my girlfriend. After sitting back down and collecting myself, I decided to try and crawl out of the 6-inch space at the top. I shoved my huge winter coat and all my shopping bags one by one over the top of the stall. Then I began to try and scale the wall tile. These were high ceilings. I fell a few times and I heard a lot of Russian men murmuring. I figured all my purchases would be gone. Eventually I squeezed over the top and fell 8 feet down on my butt to a lot of stairs. Then I had to explain why I was in the bathroom for 30 minutes. She didn't even believe me when I told her this story. Non-Americans. What's the craziest rumor you heard about America that turned out to be true? Surfer dudes actually speak like that. Californians actually speak like that too. This video feels like a nice little full circle on my first video with the channel, which was about things that surprised non-Americans about the US. Thanks for watching these last few months, folks. I'm from Quebec, and when we went down to Boston for a school trip, I sneezed in public and heard 2 or 3 people say, "Bless you." Quite a weird rumor I had heard not 2 months prior to that. I thought it was nice.
Wait, you don't say bless you when someone sneezes? I mean, it's not like it means anything, so I could understand why. It just seems so strange not to say anything.
I mean, how else were we supposed to deal with the demons that escape through sneezes? That people actually get attacked by alligators which got in their pools, specifically referring to Florida here. There are boa constrictors in Florida as well. So apparently yellow school buses are actually a thing in America. I honestly thought it was a cartoon thing, but nope. That Dolly Parton has her own theme park in Tennessee. I thought it was a joke. That woman is a saint. She has a book program for children where, once they're born, they'll receive a free children's book once a month until they turn 5. That's amazing!
She absolutely is. She's done amazing things for people, especially where she grew up. She deserves far more credit than she already has. My 2 sons are in that program, and she eats at the Mexican restaurant across the street from my house. I live in Nashville. She's super sweet and down to earth. I always thought that Olive Garden in The Simpsons was just code for generic restaurant. I mean, that's not entirely incorrect. Olive Garden is probably the closest you could get to beige if restaurants were colors. And when I first saw The Big Bang Theory, I thought for years that the Cheesecake Factory was a made-up restaurant. 'Tis such a silly name. If I don't like someone but am still socially obligated to get them a gift, I get them a gift card for Olive Garden or Applebee's. I studied in Maryland for about half a year back in 2017. I'd always heard that Americans are like super good at pie. I was pretty much all alone during Thanksgiving since everyone else was with their families. One of the RAs I'd befriended knocked on my door and bought me all different kinds of pie. Dear Lord, I've never tasted anything that delicious. From blueberry to apple to pumpkin. Every single pie. They were all amazing. I actually don't properly know if this is true, but you have like a whole aisle in your supermarkets dedicated to just the hundreds of cereals you have. Mostly true. It's cereal and other breakfast items like granola and oatmeal, but mostly cereal. All the food is bigger. Free refills.
I'm from Australia, and all my life I believed red Solo cups were like 555 area codes, a Hollywood prop. When I emigrated to the US, my mother-in-law was making dinner and offered me iced tea in a red Solo cup. I lost it, made everyone sign the cup, and I've still got it.
The Solo cup stories always kill me. We had some German exchange students in high school, and one of them loved how many American things were just like in the movies. We rode in the back of a truck to a pizza place for lunch that day, and he was loving it. In the afternoon, there was a party/get-together at someone's house. The kid was eyeing the stack of Solo cups and coyly asked, "Can I keep one?" We said sure, and the red Solo cup was the cherry on top of his American experience that day. Masked people come to your house, knock on your door asking for candy.
Mostly it's just packs of kids, but sometimes it's whole families. This was my friend's Halloween culture shock. It's a ton of fun to hang out next to the walkway in a costume, pretending to be one of the decorations and scare people as they walk past you. Sports bars are actually exactly how they're portrayed on the TV. Yeah, just much less attractive people. Drink sizes. Holy crap. When my family visited in 2017, we landed in Texas for a stopover. First thing I saw in the shops, part of the terminal, was a dude who was drinking from what actually looked like an actual frickin' bucket. Here in New Zealand, our large drinks would be considered an American small or maybe medium. We need bigger cups than most of the world since over half the cup is filled with ice. Not exactly crazy, but I wanted to test out the stereotype that Americans will talk to anyone, so I sought out a sports bar on my first visit. Ended up having a ton of really fun conversations with total strangers who I'll never talk to again. It was great! American, I will speak to anyone about anything. I can't even count the number of times I've randomly started conversations with strangers, become friends within 30 minutes, then never spoken to them again. When I started traveling for work, I'd often find myself in bars or on flights and buses alone, so I'd end up starting a conversation so I could have some human interaction. As a Canadian, it amazes me how much people around the world keep to themselves. I go to a big ski hill in the mountains a lot and look forward to chilling on ski lifts, chatting with some of the wise old skier dudes. I have long, heartfelt conversations with random's dads on airplanes, and it's great. Again, naturalized European narrator here, it seems like such a damn culture shock to have random people engage in conversation and have, or at least seem to have, genuine interest in the conversation. It's deeply unnatural, but quite pleasant for us. Biscuits and gravy is a legit thing. Also, you can ride motorcycles without helmets in some states, and your iced tea isn't sweetened unless you ask for sweet. Nothing could have possibly prepared me for the absolute dichotomy of sweet tea versus iced teas in the comments to this. This is evidently very important to many. A good sausage gravy with sage and black pepper, with some good flaky biscuits, is one of the best southern comfort foods, along with a cup of strong, sweet iced tea. Crazy hospitable. Turned out to be true. Talkative. Turned out to be true as well. $2 bills. American state and national parks are some of the most beautiful places on Earth. All parks could use more funding, but American parks are well-staffed and maintained. There's real pride there. I love our national and state park systems. One of my state parks recently got a herd of bison, which I haven't seen in the wild since my trip to Yellowstone. The week I graduate, I'm going to go see them and relax in nature. The minimal amount of paid days off you can get from work. A friend of mine from Wisconsin was very proud he got 20 days off per year. If someone in Germany would offer me only 20 days, I would laugh at him and leave. So student loans. How does it work in the USA? In the UK, when you go to a university, you take out a student loan, and after uni, when you earn a certain amount per year, a percentage above that threshold goes towards paying it back. However, if you don't earn that much, I don't know how much, maybe 20 to 25k per year, then you pay nothing. Then after a while, if you haven't paid it back, 30 years, maybe 40, then it just disappears and you don't have to pay it. In America, do you have to pay regardless of income? Is there a time limit after which debt expires and disappears? No. The only time the debt expires or disappears is if you die or pay it off. Most people have co-signers, which tend to be parents or family members, so even if they die, the co-signer will be forced to pay the student loan debt, on top of dealing with the loss of a loved one. Americans are nice and will stop to talk to strangers. Canadian here, living in Alberta. To anyone who's never been, you'll be blown away by the general Americans' generosity of their time, knowledge, and helpfulness. I've done a few summers of road trips from Calgary. One time I went to as far east as Ohio, Tennessee, as far south as New Orleans and Dallas, went through the flatlands, and rode up the Rockies the rest of the way home. I have visited almost all the landlocked states, 5 more to go, and 4 along the Gulf states, all by car. I've been through a lot of big American cities and a lot of tiny towns. All of you, north to south, make Canadians look like bloody savages. I expected something worse, probably because of television and internet. I ended up leaving your country after the first time I visited, blown away and with a newfound very real love for my southern neighbors. Been 5 times on multi-week trips. We'll spend time and money there again. 10 out of 10. America has libraries that are essentially free to use. This was not even a rumor, but more like a sarcastic comment from a friend who heard I was excited to go to the US because he knew what book nerds my entire family are. When I first arrived here 25 years ago, the first day of work at Newark, New Jersey, I walked out at lunchtime and saw the huge central library. The size boggled my mind, but I bravely walked in to check it out. The guy says, "Yep, show me your work ID or local address, and you get a membership card." Me? "How much does it cost? I only own $80 until I get my first pay." Him? Bemused, almost laughing, "It's free. You don't pay for anything." It took me some time to recover from the shock of this. "So, how many books am I allowed to take home?" I was expecting that to be a catch. Maybe I need to put down a security deposit for each book. He was now positively enjoying himself. How many can you carry? That day I took home 30+ books, just being greedy, and quickly called my dad to tell him about it. For a guy who painstakingly would browse used bookstores in small-town India just to get his kids great books to read, he was suitably amazed. He was puzzled if it would kill the bookstore business, because who'd buy if such great free libraries existed? Up to the present day, I feel such gratitude for being able to come here, and when Dad visited some years later, I would drop him off at a library on my way to work, and he'd be lost in it all day. To address some of the questions people are now sending me, yes, by take home I meant borrowed to return. Carrying those books home has a story too. The librarian saw my dilemma and wanted to stick to his original "how many can you carry" comment, and would not allow me to discard any, so went off and got me 2 large bags made of cloth or canvas, like grocery bags. And when I lugged all of that on the train back to New Jersey that evening, I had to walk home from the train station, no car, to a mile away. Normally not bad, but with those books, it was tedious. A cop saw me and gave me a lift home. He loved my story about the library too. India today is slightly better, but as a kid in a small town, the only library I saw was at my school, where books were never allowed to be taken home. And then there was this single shop where you subscribed to borrow some pulp fiction. The Asiatic Library in Bombay was big. I saw it when I visited my cousins, but it had a wait list, I think, of 4 years, because they couldn't handle too many members. I'm always amazed at what all libraries offer. I took my parents for a movie showing once, set up as a once-a-month thing for seniors, and they were shocked that it was free. And they were giving away cookies and stuff too, along with pleasant company. My girls have learned to love the library as much as I do, and probably have read more books than most kids at school. My daughter won an award for some accelerated reading, and at age 9 gave a speech about the impact of libraries for her, and how much her dad and grandpa loved them. Thank you, libraries and librarians. This started off as a simple praise of America's libraries, but turned into a really cute, fresh-off-the-boat story that would probably make a number of people want to move to the land of the free. Maybe do your research first, though, folks.
As an American, I think you could ask the title question to Americans, 'cause there are some weird friggin' states, man. Dry counties, cities where places aren't allowed to be open on a Sunday, or there can only be certain hours on Sunday. Not being able to pump your own gas. Whoa, there are places where you can't pump your own gas? I feel like I'm an idiot for not knowing this.
Oregon here, can confirm. Afraid to drive outside the state because I don't know how to pump my own gas. That you can identify Texans with the simple phrase, "The stars at night are big and bright," and someone else will go, "Deep in the heart of Texas." That Hawaiians really like Spam. Yeah, and there's a perfectly good reason for it too. After Pearl Harbor, the effects of World War II started in the US and rationing became a thing. Well, it turns out that it's kind of hard to get fresh rations to an island that imports a lot. So for meat, they had to make do with Spam. Human ingenuity prevails and dishes were made, and that's how Hawaii learned to love Spam. The honking. I thought it was a movie stereotype. Then I went to New York.
It's rare outside the big cities though, in my opinion.
If you think that's bad, try going to India. Parents were from the USSR. They were freaking shocked about how nice you Americans are. They said that y'all were a weird type of nice, but nice regardless. It didn't even matter that they were from the USSR, moved to the States post-collapse. You Americans seemed to accept them anyway. I, American, had such a pleasant interaction with a tourist from Russia the other day, in Walmart of all places. I saw a man that clearly looked confused in the auto section, so I walked toward him and he tried to explain what he was looking for, but he hardly spoke any English at all. So I pulled my phone out to use Google Translator and told him to speak into my phone. The translation came back that he was looking for detergent for bugs in love bed, so I took him to an aisle to look for bed bug killer. He looked so confused and pulled out a piece of paper that had "Love Bug Wash" written on it in English, so I took him back to the auto section and helped him pick out some car soap. He kept saying, "God bless," to me. We laughed a lot through the process, and I thought it was so cool that we could speak different languages but still communicate. To clarify, lovebug is a type of fly. We call them lovebugs because after mating, adult pairs remain coupled, even in flight, for up to several days, like they're in love. But we get them in huge numbers during mating season, spring or summer. Because of this, a lot of cars will be covered in these lovebugs that they ran into the road. This is Florida, by the way. Sorry, I let this one get quite far off track, because I was so interested in the gosh darn lovebugs. Also, why do all the weirdest things seem to converge on Florida? They have milk in gallon cartons. When I visited America, I went to a supermarket for some breakfast stuff, cereal and milk. All they had was milk in gallons. Who could possibly have that much milk? I asked for a smaller carton, and the lady who worked there just laughed at me and asked me if we just don't like milk in England very much. Many supermarkets have half gallons and quarter gallons, but honestly, I'm surprised that it's an issue. I live alone and go through a gallon of milk in just a few days. I drink at least 7 gallons a day to ensure I get enough calcium. That American kids eat straight sugar. Walked onto the playground and saw kids chugging these long, thin sticks. I'd try and it was just colored sugar. They called them pixie sticks. Oh boy, wait till you find out about Fun Dips. You have a hard candy stick, so all sugar, that you lick and then dip into a colored sugar sack to make it stick to the sugar stick. Then you lick the sugar powder off the sugar stick. After you finish all the powder, you eat the stick. Before I came to the States, as we called it, I lived in Germany. The area I lived in had no fireflies. So when I got to the States, I did not believe my eyes, as I finally saw fireflies light up the world as I fell asleep. I also thought that New York City was a popular fictional city. I didn't believe it actually existed. At the time, it seemed too large and extraordinary to possibly exist. For those talking about other countries, I didn't know there were other countries at the time either. I only knew of places I had lived, which was Germany and soon to be the US. I was never told about the concept of countries until I went to an American school. The "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" song that's apparently sung at baseball games. Still not entirely sure that guy wasn't taking the mickey out of me. Female here. I've been in bathrooms where the gap between the stall and the door is so big I felt the need to cover it with my purse just to get some privacy. The absolute worst is when some mother brings her grubby-handed son into the bathroom and you see a freaking 8-year-old's eye staring at you from the other side of the door. That your country is huge. I got off the plane and asked the cab guy how far the hotel was, and he said about 30 miles. I almost had a heart attack. Turns out cabs are cheaper than the UK though. I can't remember the price I paid, but I was pleasantly surprised. The UK cabs are like £4 per mile. Also, you would get laughed out of the taxi for asking to go 30 miles and not taking the train. Not really crazy, but I just learned you guys have like outdoor sirens that get tested somewhat frequently. I've only heard those noises in video games and movies until my friend sent me a clip, because I had no idea it actually happened. In many areas of the US, these sirens are used to warn of impending severe weather and potential tornadoes. Sirens are tested on the first Tuesday of the month at 10 a.m. around Chicago. My dad heard this crazy rumor about everyone getting drunk and wearing green for one day a year. He obviously didn't know this was a holiday and was like, WTF. When he came to the US and he discovered St. Patrick's Day, he was amazed. My dad is from China, for you affronted Irish people. St. Patrick's Day in the US is an excuse for ordinary Americans to act the way that middle-aged Londoners act when on holiday in Dublin, only with more plastic leprechaun hats and glitter. Yeah, and on top of that, suddenly everyone's part Irish. When I say suddenly part Irish, I'm not implying everyone's lying. A lot of them are probably telling the truth since there's so many Irish Americans. What I meant is that no one mentions this fact until St. Patrick's Day. People of Walmart. One of the nicest people in one of the towns I lived in is pictured on People of Walmart. He's known as Willie the Pimp, or just Mr. Willie. Older gentleman, just likes to dress flashy because it makes people smile to see beautiful things. Before he got too old to drive, you could spot his car by the flower arrangements he attached to the side of the front bumper. As a Brit living in America, the amount of pharmaceutical commercials on TV is creepy. Smiling person living life to the fullest. Narrator? Side effects include anal bleeding, gigantism, lupus, skin shedding, and death. Ask your doctor about Prolax today. The SAT exam being multiple choice. Multiple choice exams in general. That you can get into university just by being good at sports. Like what the frick? Yep, most schools have academic and athletic scholarships, not just academic ones. It's not always a full ride, and you still have to qualify academically, which is occasionally a problem, but that's usually a bare minimum baseline. The reason is that college sports are almost as popular as professional sports, especially football and basketball. Those sports bring money and fame to players and schools, so it's common for schools to try and get the best players to commit. The school I went to, UVA, won the most recent college basketball championship, and now they're well known around the US. Nearly every man is circumcised regardless of religion. Checking in, Catholic. Am snipped. I had an interaction with a British friend online where I said that something looked like a flaccid pee-pee, and he was really confused. When I traced over what I was saying, we realized that I was picturing a flaccid, circumcised pee-pee, and he, being more familiar with the uncut variety, hadn't seen what I did. It was the first time I realized that other parts of the world wouldn't be inclined to circumcise every male child. Now I'm just not sure why it's so pervasive in the US to begin with. They have garbage disposals in their kitchens. That's so wild to me. To clarify, I'm from the UK. I'm aware that they're not the same as bins or trash cans and that they're mainly for food waste and scraps. I'm also delighted that they're called garberators in Canada. Homeowners associations. What the frick is up with that? The place that my wife and I bought came with a busybody of an HOA president. We got a fricking note stapled to our gate that said our clothes line had to be removed because it was an eyesore. So I wrote back and told her about how crappy our dryer is, and that we're in the fricking desert anyway, so hanging them up is the most environmentally friendly way to dry clothes anyway. Still got another note during laundry day the following week, so I stapled a note to her door that said, "If you want me to have a good dryer, then buy me one. Otherwise, kindly F off." Haven't heard from her since, not even a note. Hope she's okay. When you sail west, you arrive in America and not India. Then why do they call them Indians? Phew, this guy. Can you really just buy a Glock at Walmart? At my local Walmart, you can bring your car in for an oil check, get an eye exam, get a haircut, eat lunch at the in-store Subway, purchase a Glock, purchase groceries, purchase a frickin' couch, then go home once the background check for the Glock is finished and the oil change is done. Other things I forgot to add, you can purchase alcohol depending on state. You can get your taxes done there, you can get your birthday cake made, print pictures from a USB, phone, etc., get dog tags made, get spare keys made, rent movies, pick up a full-course meal for dinner at the deli. What's the most ridiculous rule in your place of work? I'm a teacher, so I have a million stupid rules I have to follow. But the worst one is that my performance evaluation is based on student improvement on the STAR literacy test. I teach woodshop. At my old job, HR held a meeting to tell us that there was too much swearing on the sales floor. Someone raised their hand and pointed out that swearing is very common in our industry, and that it is the way that our customers speak. HR later sent out a memo explaining that swearing should be limited to conversations with clients. It was amazing. Please only swear when in the presence of a customer. All customers should be greeted with a jolly, "What the frick is up?" or a chipper, "Who the frick crapped on you today, you B-word?" Any attempts to not insult or demean our customers will be written up. Frick you and have a great day. HR. Somewhere I have the email printed out. I had a crazy crap folder where I kept nutty emails, and that HR memo was definitely one of the best. If you are stuck in traffic on the way to work, you must email the CEO. Phone calls and texts are not permitted, only email. I'd get that one in writing and send it to the corporate insurer. If you're supposed to email the CEO when you're late, there's probably no corporate insurer. There's probably not much of a corporation for that matter. I used to work at a place in which my boss implemented a no more than 2 glasses of water a day policy. What a chump. I ignored this rule and complained directly to our CEO, and the matter ended later that day. What was weird though was that the majority of people actually followed the rule, and some even shopped me up to HR about breaking the rules. I left not long after that because not only was my boss a member, but if my colleagues were going to HR over me drinking water, then I obviously couldn't trust them. What industry was this where they felt the need to limit water drinking? Sadly, they were probably trying to limit bathroom breaks. As a man who is guzzling water from dawn to dusk, admittedly, probably just because voice acting is a little tough on the throat, I would revolt if a boss tried to implement this. Had a workplace time our bathroom breaks and deduct them from our allotted 15-minute breaks for lunch. We had to go see the office manager to get a key to open the restroom. As soon as we left his office, he would start a timer. When you got back, he would stop the timer and tell you how much time you needed to deduct from your lunch or next break. They watched our breaks like a hawk. Also, if you made a mistake, they would stand over you and time you while you fixed it and deduct that from your lunch or breaks. You couldn't bring anything that smells for lunch, and they had no way of heating anything up. I worked out my contract and split. I would troll the heck out of that manager. Just pee in the sink. Then go ask for the bathroom key, be gone for 21 seconds, and give the key back. Do this often. Confuse the frick out of him while simultaneously interrupting his day 30 times. Worth it. Business casual dress code even when I work at home. They Skype me to check.
What the frick? Why? What business are you in?
Exactly my thoughts on it. I'm an intern for a small logistics company. My dad told me this one a while back. He used to work for a PR firm. The way he described the office environment, think The Office, but in the 1980s. The company hired a corporate efficiency specialist to come in and improve things. She came in and implemented all kinds of rules which seemed to follow some sort of caste system. Her philosophy was the higher your rank, the more perks you get. Her idea of perks? Number of pictures you're allowed in your cubicle. Whether you were allowed to have a potted plant or not. Coffee mugs were only allowed to senior employees. Others had to use paper cups. Being allowed to leave the office for lunch was also considered a perk. Needless to say, a coup soon followed and she was tossed out on her hiney. Dress code policy is just dumb at my work. Different positions have different requirements, even though we all work in the same office. My favorite rule, though, is the one on shorts. We can wear shorts on Fridays, between Memorial Day and Labor Day. However, the shorts can't have pockets on the side. It was written to discourage ratty cargo shorts, but the way in which it was written allows me to wear gym shorts. So I do. Once worked at a place where some mini-boss decided that since UPS trucks don't turn left, we shouldn't either. I don't know if UPS trucks turn left or not, or if that is beneficial to them or not, and frankly, I don't care. The point is that mini-boss thought they did, and that was the reasoning he gave. He was an idiot, I didn't stay there long. This was a goddamn ambulance company with a 911 contract. I will turn left if and when I fricking need to turn left. Not my current job, but I used to work for some crazy people. You had to stand in a specific area while eating so they could see you on the camera. Don't talk to customers longer than 3 minutes unless you're making a big sale. Even then, keep it short. Answer the phone within 2 rings. Keep the conversation to less than 30 seconds. You can't talk to your coworkers outside of work. You can't talk to your coworkers while at work, even if there was not a single customer in the store. I'm sure there's more, I just can't think of them right now. Old job of mine in a warehouse. Our stations were pretty far apart, so when we'd listen to music, we'd all usually have our own stuff playing. Not a problem since you could barely hear the neighbor's music. Well, the CEO didn't like hearing multiple songs when walking through the warehouse. He made a rule that we all either had to listen to the same music or none at all. I'd put on the same song, but everyone started at 15 seconds apart. We got a new vacation policy where you could take unlimited time off. When he announced it, we looked at the big boss like he had a pee-pee growing out of his forehead. All the while, he assured us that if we wanted vacation, to take it. Really? A little bit awkward. He changed it to discretionary time off, meaning that if your boss approved, it was okay. Then changed it to 160 hours should be the max, and if you go over 200 hours, then you probably don't need to work here. I can't reconcile with how these people implement these policies and come across as a good person in their own heads. It's one thing to be desperate in rough times, but the sneakiness is what gets me. I once needed a pen. Figured this was a reasonable ask. Went to the supply closet on my floor, which was locked. Asked the floor's admin. She told me to go to the main supply room in the basement. Went to the basement and explained my situation of needing a pen. They told me all requests for supplies must be approved by my department head. Problem is, being new, I'd never met my department head. She also worked in San Francisco. I work in Milwaukee. So I needed to send an email both introducing myself and asking her if I had permission to get a pen from the supply closet. This is my favorite one so far. It's so ridiculous in every way. In my first one-on-one with my boss, she asked me how everything was going. I said fine, but explained that I wasn't able to get a pen, which made taking notes and meetings difficult. She got up, went to her desk, and grabbed me a handful of pens. If you had to take leave on Monday or Friday so that you had an extended weekend of 3 days instead of 2, it was counted as 3 days leave, counting Saturday and Sunday. Deal with that. This was in a small private company in India dealing with medical writing. If you're 1 minute late, it's tardy. If you take a half day, nothing goes on your record. I was told to just take a half day if you're going to be late because they straight up fire you for tardies. Also, if you clock out early, it's a tardy. If you have to go to the doctor on lunch break and it's going to take an hour and 10 minutes, take the rest of the day off. Weird. Firemen. Our risk management department decided long ago that poles were too risky for us. So we used the stairs. We have poles. Anyway, now the newest rule is no free weights, as in no free weights to work out and stay fit. Go into burning high-rise, absolutely. Walk around the station carrying 40-pound dumbbells, too risky. I feel you. My fire department just got some workout equipment, rowing machine and bike, and it had been delayed due to liability concerns. But we actually have a fire pole that we use. It's all very confusing. We aren't allowed to wear jackets unless they're purchased from the resort gift shop with the hotel name logo on it. They're $50+ and we don't get reimbursed, but it's the price you pay to stay warm in the cold months. McDonald's did this to us when I worked there. They paid half, but they were still like $50 to $60 for a crappy fleece. I just wore my regular jacket and nobody said a thing. Former job. There was trouble when I, officially, moved desks and my new desk had a phone with a call display. Apparently call display phones were allowed for people at a certain pay level. Your pay level also governed the height of your cubicle walls. My manager's solution was to promote me. Another former job, we were mandated to work on an engineering-related project outside of work hours, because a responsible engineer always gives back to the engineering community. I could live with that. However, your project had to be related to the company's business. We have to do all of our paperwork at least 3 times. There is a copy of it in our personal folders, a copy online, and a copy in our store folders. Not only does it waste time and paper, but forgetting to do one has gotten people fired. They did the other 2 identical pieces of paperwork confirming that yes, they did take out the trash, and yes, they did check the store voicemail, but how dare they forget to do the 3rd piece of identical paperwork. Our weekly visits from corporate revolve around whether or not we've done all this paperwork. It's so redundant. My workplace doesn't let you use the word problems. Instead, we have to say challenges if something is wrong, as a problem is a negative word, and challenges promotes the fact that there is room to fix said problem. But problems have solutions. I'd love to have a boss tell me my drinking has become a challenge. Former job at a law office. One of the partners sent an email to the entire staff that employees were not allowed to gossip in the building. What was everyone gossiping about, you ask? Oh, said partner was divorcing his wife and sleeping with one of the associate attorneys in the firm. But don't gossip. All the extra toilet paper in the building has to stay in a single closet where it can be overseen by the toilet paper queen. I heard her shrieking the other day when she discovered someone had hoarded 1 spare roll of toilet paper upstairs, so the people who work upstairs wouldn't have to walk down multiple flights of stairs when the toilet paper ran out. It's the cheapest 1-ply toilet paper available on the giant rolls that only fit in the special dispensers. I can't imagine anyone wanting to steal it. I hope Toilet Paper Queen is actually her title. She allegedly does other stuff, I'm not sure what exactly. Hear that, kids? If you work real hard and keep your nose clean, you too can maybe one day be your office's toilet paper queen. Godspeed, listeners. We had a rule like that, so we all pooled $1 and brought our own TP at Costco, double ply. At first, managers were happy that they saved money on TP. Employees were mad that the company should pay for our TP, but it was a very unifying experience. Eventually, managers tried to woo us back to their side when they realized people were sharing pay information and just generally creating a united front. We had a spoon and milk queen who governed all the spoons and milk for my office. She would go around desks and hound people for spoons. People bought their spoons in so they wouldn't have to deal with her. But she didn't understand that people could bring in stuff from home and was adamant that they must belong to the company, and got angry if you opposed her spoon reclamation mission. She also redesigned our kitchen. In her grand redesign, she left out a cutlery drawer. But we still have triple height pots and pans drawer, so that's something. Although no cooker or pots and pans, so it's completely empty. Thankfully, she was let go. I used to work for the now long-defunct books, movies, and music store, AmITheA. Just one of the 285 reasons that poorly run businesses ran into the ground was the tardy or attendance policies. If you were literally 0.01 seconds late clocking in, even hours before the store opened, it was a really, really big deal. You'd not only be formally written up, but lectured like a child, oftentimes berated even. If you were tardy 3 times, bye-bye. However, if you no-showed and then called 2 hours later saying you were sick, okay, thank you, feel better. This trained everyone to just take sick days instead of being half a second late to work. I can't tell you how many times you'd see a co-worker screeching into the parking lot before work after fighting traffic from a wreck or whatever, noticing it was 8:01 and then slowly driving off to go home and feign being sick. This was particularly upsetting when it was pull-down stock week, when we needed every hand on deck but had unusually early shifts. My job years ago tried to implement a very strict attendance policy like that, where if you were 1 second late, you would get written up. Till one Saturday, a guy who worked there for like 30 years shows up to work 30 seconds late. They pull him into the office and write him up. He then gets up and tells them that he's going home. Working Saturdays was voluntary, and he basically said, I don't have to be here today, so I'm going home. He was doing them a favor by working that day, but when they wrote him up for being 30 seconds late, he basically fricked them over by just going home. That policy didn't last too much longer. For the most part, if you're a few minutes late, it's no big deal at all. If you're late all the time, they'll have a word with you or write you up. But they understand crap happens sometimes that's out of your control to cause you to be late. Yeah, screwing over company veterans is historically a bad move in business. Glad that guy had the balls to leave and the rule was cancelled. Many years ago, I was a vacuum cleaner salesman. There were songs about this particular brand of vacuum cleaner and how awesome it was. Every morning, we had to sing these songs as a group. In fairness, it was a pretty quality item. It was Kirby. Didn't mean to be subversive, I just didn't think anyone would care. When I was in the military, I saw a buddy of mine sitting outside crying. I went and consoled him best as I could. Apparently, he was just depressed and unhappy. After he was feeling a bit better, I went to go and find someone to tell them what was happening. They knew, in fact, he'd been crying so much lately that they had instituted a no crying at your desk policy, which is why he was outside. If we want to take a full 5 days off week, we need to use 2 vacation days, 1 personal and 2 more vacation days. We can never use 3 vacation days straight. Something similar here. We can't use our sick time until we use 3 vacation days. So let's say I have no vacation hours, but get really sick. I can't use paid time off. Our sick time is essentially useless. We work alternating days, 3 on, 4 off, 4 on, 3 off. If you take vacation on your short week, which is 3 working days, they dock you 5 vacation days for taking an entire week off. How is that legal? I drive valet. The company handbook says you're never allowed to back up. Ever. You absolutely cannot do the job without reverse. It's impossible. It's in there because of liability and our insurance policy. This way, it can always be the valet's fault if an accident ever occurs. Perhaps this will answer the most repeated question: if the rule says no reverse, yet you're expected to park a car, how can you park the car? Answer: never hit anything and always reverse despite the rules. Expect to be fired should you hit anything in reverse, but probably not. The rule only exists to cover the company's butt, but if they don't feel threatened by you working there and you're an asset, you will still not be fired. And yes, many people are questioning the legality of it, and you're right. It wouldn't hold up in courts, but it's in the handbook and it's silly, so I posted it. We can't ask others if they just want to come and grab a coffee in the break room. Just develop a subtle nod that means the same thing. How about a slap on the bum and a wink? The last commenter's suggestion for a signal is hilarious, but also feels like a great way to noticeably break a whole bunch of other, much more strictly enforced rules. Not accusing other staff members of being witches. Yeah, it happened, so we had to make a rule. I run a hostel in Uganda. It's not like this anymore, but for a while they attempted to have a dress code. Guys had to wear collared shirts, but Hawaiian-style shirts were totally acceptable. You could not wear jean shorts, but jean overall shorts were okay. I got sent home one day because my shorts weren't fingertip length. We were tech support. No one ever saw us, that was the best part. Because everyone is asking, fingertip length meant standing with your arms at your sides, and your shorts had to be longer than where your fingertips ended. Think grade school rules. I worked as a call receiver. We never saw a customer. We were only on the phones with them. Rule: your hair must be only a natural color. I dyed my hair the exact same color that someone from a different shift had. I was reprimanded. I told them that if the rule was not enforced for everyone, they couldn't single me out. Their reason for letting the other person have that color but not me, mine was my real hair dyed to an unnatural color. Hers was a weave that could be changed very easily. Really? Then why hasn't she been asked to change her hair? Because that crap is expensive. They gave up trying to convince me they were right. I had a boss who didn't like the outrageous color I had in my hair. I'm a natural redhead. One of my sisters actually got fired for a job for something similar. She's a natural blonde, but kept her hair dyed red for years. When she decided to go back to her natural hair color to cut expenses, professional dye jobs aren't cheap, her boss flipped out and insisted that she go back to red, pointing out that the company had a rule that prohibited dyed hair. He didn't believe her when she pointed out that this was her natural hair color, and fired her for insubordination and violating company policy when she flat out refused to go red again. Actually, she did offer to go red again if the company paid the styling bill. When she went in to pick up her last check a few days later, she took in a handful of pictures of her younger self to prove that blonde really was her natural color. Her boss just looked at them and said, "That just means you've been violating company policy for years, and that I should have fired you a long time ago. Don't bother using us as a reference." She was talking to a lawyer about a possible lawsuit, but I don't think anything ever came of it. I work in retail and we have on-call shifts. Your name will be listed on the schedule for a certain time as a call-in, so you have to call 1 hour before your shift to figure out if they need you to work for the day. For example, you'd be listed as on call for 2 p.m. and wouldn't know until 1 p.m. if you were working that evening. If you don't call in, it's considered not showing up for a shift, but there's no extra pay for the shift whether they need you or not. So for 3 days of the week, I don't know if I have work or not. Can't make any solid plans to do anything except call my work and ask if they need me. I can't imagine having children or elderly that need taken care of because it would be such a hassle to arrange care for them just an hour before having to work. You people reading this want me to sue this corporate demon. I'm looking into it now and will update with any relevant developments. I'm going to dig up my contract tomorrow and see if I can speak to a law person. Thanks for motivating me. I don't know if it's a standard, but I worked at a place where HR wasn't allowed to tell us if someone was fired. It was a big enough place that you might not immediately realize someone had left, and when you'd found out, you weren't supposed to ask why. So if you wanted to know if they were fired, you'd ask, "Was there cake?" Which was to say that if the person had retired or left pleasantly after a number of years, they'd be given a party with cake. If they were fired, not so much. For example, "I haven't seen Brian for some time. Brian no longer works here. Was there cake?" We have a lock on the first aid kits, so if you need a band-aid for a cut, you have to get the key from the safety guy, which in turn makes it a reportable accident, with mountains of paperwork and investigations. We use an unbelievable amount of duct tape now. Frick that, I'd be keeping a box of band-aids in a rarely used drawer or hidden away somewhere. There was an issue where there was too much socializing going on the factory floor, particularly when people were working while sitting down. False, skewed supervisor perception. So they made everyone stand. When that presented ergonomics problems, they brought in these weird chairs that made you sit at a slant, had no backs and no wheels, so they wouldn't cause distractions. No part of it made any sense. I feel it. At my old job as a pet bather at a pet chain, we had a stool in the salon to sit at while using the computer, and I had a personal step stool for sitting while brushing large dogs on the floor. The cashiers next door complained that they weren't able to sit, yet we were, so all stools were ordered out of the salon. I thus had to kneel, squat, or sit on the floor to brush every dog over 75 pounds. You try convincing a Labrador that the short table that goes up into the air is safe for a dog his size. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, linked at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot, linked in the description too. Either way, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.